Good afternoon and welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, looking live there at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. At 4:15 Eastern Time, the president participates in a Christmas reception. That is at the Grand Foyer that's currently closed to the press. As you see there as well, the president will be signing this National Defense Authorization Act. That happens at 6 o'clock Eastern, so we'll be live with that coverage. Also tonight at 8:15, the president and the first lady participate in a Christmas reception. That's at the Grand Foyer. That's also currently closed to the press. Tomorrow night, the president will deliver a speech on the economy in Rocky Point, North Carolina. So we'll have a crew, of course, that will be there live. We look forward to you joining us here on Right Side Broadcasting Network as it's 4:02 Eastern Time. Thursday, December 18th. Hopefully you have all your Christmas shopping done. But I know a lot of us, including myself, will be doing some of that early next week as well. Meantime, President Trump signed an executive order earlier today at the White House. Let's take a look.
Marijuana from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 controlled substance with legitimate medical uses. We have people begging for me to do this, people that are in great pain. For decades, this action has been requested by American patients suffering from extreme pain, incurable diseases, aggressive cancers, seizure disorders, neurological problems, and more, including numerous veterans with service-related injuries and older Americans who live with chronic medical problems that severely degrade their quality of life. And it's so really, I mean, I can't tell you, I think I probably have received more phone calls on this, on doing what we're doing. I don't think I received any calls on the other side of it, but hopefully this reclassification, which by the way polls at 82%, will help many of those patients live a far better life. We're joined today by Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's doing a fantastic job, Administrator of Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Dr. Mehmet Oz, the FDA Commissioner, Dr. Marty McCary, Director of the National Institutes of Health, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, and the Director of the National Institute on Drug Abuse, Dr. Nora Valkow, as well as Dr. Ilana Braun from the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, Duke University's Dr. David Casseret, the National Commander of the American Legion, Dan Wiley, and my friend Howard Kessler. Howard, how are you feeling? I'm telling you, he looks better than he did 20 years ago. But I don't want to go through what you went through to get there. Right? But it looks like you're doing great. I'm proud of you. I want to emphasize that the order I am about to sign is not the legalization, or it doesn't legalize marijuana in any way, shape, or form, and in no way sanctions its use as a recreational drug. It has nothing to do with that. Just as the prescription painkillers may have legitimate uses, but can also do irreversible damage and never. If you look at some of the damage that can be caused, wreck lives, and if it's abused, it's never safe to use powerful controlled substances in recreational manners, and especially in this case, if you take a look, illegal and unregulated drugs, very, very bad thing. So I've always told my children, don't take drugs, no drinking, no smoking, and just stay away from drugs. I have been. They would look at me and they said, Dad, would you stop saying that? I would say it every time I looked at it practically. Young Americans are especially at risk, so unless a drug is recommended by a doctor for medical reasons, just don't do it. At the same time, the Facts compel the federal government to recognize that marijuana can be legitimate in terms of medical applications when carefully administered. In some cases, this may include the use as a substitute for addictive and potentially lethal opioid painkillers, and they cause tremendous problems. This can do it in a much lesser way, can make people feel much better that are living through tremendous pain and problems. 40 states and multiple U.S. territories have already recognized the use of medical marijuana. This reclassification order will make it far easier to conduct marijuana-related medical research, allowing us to study benefits, potential dangers, and future treatments. It's going to have a tremendously positive impact, I believe. We're also asking Congress to reconsider its classification of hemp-derived CBD to ensure seniors can access CBD products they have found beneficial for pain and other reasons. Some people are literally dying, and they're dying with tremendous pain, and this can, in many cases, literally stop it. And they have their senses about them, as opposed to painkillers, which don't allow that, don't allow them to die with dignity, frankly. I promise to be the president of common sense, and that is exactly what we're doing. This is really something having to do with common sense. And it's something having to do with the fact that so many people that I respect ask me to do. People that are having problems, big problems. They are having big problems with illness, with cancer in particular. I now want to ask Dr. Oz to say a few words, followed by Dr. Braun, Dr. Casseret, Dan Wiley, and Dr. Valcow. And we'll sign the order as soon as they're complete, and we'll take some questions. Please, go ahead.
Mr. President, thank you for always bravely pushing for common sense change, as you call it. So President Trump, Secretary Kennedy have been pushing for change. They're passionate in their desire to help the American people, and they have relentlessly pursued this agenda throughout this administration. This also includes a deep passion for research, gold standard research, as Secretary Kennedy also says. But there's another side to the president that often isn't reflected in media reports, and that's the deep passion he has for the people in his life. And he has called me frequently about the people who are calling him, as he alluded to, who are saying that they've got problems and they got relief from some of the solutions we're talking about today. Howard Kessler, who's standing behind me here, who's a mutual friend of ours, was an early caller of the president. Many others have ever reached out as well. And Howard's been a passionate advocate for avoiding narcotics, especially in seniors, and particularly seniors suffering from cancer. And that's a population that is a very important one. And it's a sympathetic population that's desirous of trying new ways besides some of the conventional approaches that have been tested by pharmaceutical companies but have untoward side effects. At the beginning of the year, one of the first things the president told me, he doesn't actually tell you, he demanded from me, that my agency, CMS...
Nobody demands from him.
No.
Nobody. You have to know him.
That's right.
Go ahead.
Use the whole tools at his wherewithal to find a better way to help seniors. A passion for a population that has gotten left behind with these discussions. I promised that we would find an answer, even though it had not been done before, and today we are delivering on that promise. Today, our Innovation Center at CMS is announcing a new model and additional actions to give seniors access to cannabinoids. These are CBDs. They're non-addictive, which many are already using to manage pain. There's some clinical evidence that's showing that CBDs provide relief from common conditions that affect Americans, including cancer symptoms and chronic pain and a slew of other problems that affect disproportionately seniors and our veterans. And 6 in 10 people who use the CBDs report that they improve their pain. I think all of those people are calling the president, judged on the number of calls in the support of what we're doing today. And sometimes these decisions are difficult, and there's a reason this hasn't happened before. And there's a reason, Mr. President, that every president before you has whiffed on this issue. It's tough. And I know there's going to be a lot of discussion about it. That's why we're so passionate about making it clear that this patchwork that we're working within now, the laws and regulations, they are leaving patients and doctors without adequate guidance on the safeguards of how to use these products, even though they're still being used. At Medicare, we cover 68 million Americans, including people under the age of 65. And they did not have a way of providing these treatments until today. With the president's insistence, That's all changes. The Innovation Center models are going to allow millions of Americans on Medicare to become eligible to receive CBD as early as April of next year, and at no charge, if their doctors recommend them. Thanks to the hard work of the entire CMS team, especially Abe Sutton and Gita Dio at the Innovation Center, the accountable care organizations in this country working in Medicare will be able to provide these products, again, at no cost to patients. Medicare Advantage insurers, and we've been calling them, are also agreeing to consider CBD to be used for the 34 million Americans that they cover. If you can hear my voice and you're over 65, you should pay attention to this executive order because it's going to touch your life. Again, this all becomes active after the first quarter of next year. These CBD products must first meet local and state quality and safety standards. They must come from legitimate sources. They must abide by other regulations of those states. With these boxes checked, patients can be eligible for up to $500 of hemp-derived products each year. This is the first government-led testing of quality and outcomes for patients across different conditions, and it delivers on the need for more data collection and research into hemp usage. CMS is going to collect data, that's our job, on the patients that are being given these products by their physicians. In accordance with all the privacy and security regulations, we're going to analyze that data. We're going to make it publicly available to everybody to be able to analyze with us. If it shows promise, we will expand access to these products to even more conditions amongst Medicare and Medicaid beneficiaries. I want to thank not just the Secretary, but Marty McCary. We want a lot of companies who are doing this research that approach the FDA for formal approval. That is the right way to move forward. And Jay Bhattacharya, who's hiding in the back, he rarely hides, but Jay runs NIH, and he's agreed to support initiatives to study the data that we're collecting. Howard Kester, God bless you for being a pain in our sides. Mr. President, he's promised to stop calling you. But on this issue, we'll call you on other issues. And I thank you again from the bottom of my heart for taking a difficult stance.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Mr. President, members of the Cabinet, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and for your leadership in rescheduling cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. This decision will accelerate scientific research and expand what can responsibly be studied. I'm a cancer psychiatrist and medical cannabis researcher at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. Over the past decade, federal investment in research has helped transform cancer care. People are living longer than ever before. But cancer care is not only about treating the tumor, it's also about addressing the anxiety, the fear, the stress that can come with a diagnosis, symptoms that can interfere with treatment and make recovery much more difficult. Many medications we use for acute anxiety carry significant risks, particularly in the older adults. That's why we're studying specific natural compounds found in cannabis, including the non-addictive cannabidiol, to understand whether they can safely and effectively help manage anxiety during cancer treatment. Rescheduling allows us to ask these questions rigorously about dosing, about safety, and who may benefit most. This research reflects the best of federal investment, helping people not only live longer, but live better. Thank you, Mr. President, for supporting careful, science-based research that puts patients first.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. That's beautiful. Thank you.
I'll add my vote of thanks, Mr. President. I never really thought this day would come. I met a patient about 20 years ago, a retired professor named Elizabeth, who came to my clinic. She was dying of pancreatic cancer, and she asked me then whether cannabis might help her. And I said no, because that's what I learned in medical school. She reached into her briefcase, took out a 3-inch tall stack of articles, put them down on my desk, and said, "Really, doctor? You should read these. You might learn something." And I did read those articles, every single one, and found a bunch more. And I did learn something. I learned that there actually is some medical benefit to cannabis that I had not anticipated, never heard about in medical school. Second, I learned that there's a lot we don't know. And third, I learned it's really, really, really difficult to do high-quality, randomized controlled trials of a substance that's federally illegal. This rescheduling has the potential to change all of that and to rewrite the way that we do research related to cannabis in the United States in 3 ways. First of all, it'll democratize the research process so that all academic institutions can participate in research, not just elite academic medical centers. Number 2, it'll give patients and researchers access to highly refined, reliable sources of cannabis rather than relying on 1 or 2 sources around the country. And last but not least, it'll let us do the sorts of large-scale randomized controlled trials that we do in oncology and cardiology. Not dozens of patients, but hundreds or thousands of patients. That's how we learn. That's how we produce valuable knowledge that's useful in guiding treatment decisions. Mr. President, without you, this never would have been possible, and my patients and I and all of our families are grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor, very much. Thank you.
Mr. President, I am Dan Wiley, National Commander of the American Legion, representing 1.5 million veterans. We are the largest veterans organization. We have 2.5 million members of our American Legion family. And I want to start by thanking you for your leadership on this issue. This issue is extremely important to the American Legion, and I want to thank you on behalf of the veterans who are going to benefit from potentially the research regarding this issue. Also want to thank you for your VA Secretary, Secretary Collins, and his work on difficult veterans issues with us this past year. The VA has worked with us on our Be the One mission, which is a mission to fight the epidemic of veteran suicide. Veterans are disproportionately affected by conditions such as PTSD, TBI, depression, and chronic pain. And with this reclassification, it will allow research to be conducted with regard to cannabis. There is anecdotal evidence that cannabis benefits these conditions, and now we'll have an opportunity to see if research does prove that it is effective. And if it is so, then it'll open up a whole new method of treatment for our veterans with regard to this particular issue. And so, again, I just want to thank you for your leadership, and thank you on behalf of the American Legion for this executive order.
Thank you. Such great people
Thank you very much, Mr.
that have
President.
suffered and will suffer a lot less now.
You're right.
Based on what I hear.
Good
Anybody
afternoon.
else, please?
I'm Nora Volkov. I'm Director of the National Institute on Drug Abuse. And for us, the rescheduling opens the door to actually be able to accelerate the rate at which we can do research and discovery. And research is crucial in order for us to, for example, understand what may be and for whom the dangers of cannabis. Yes, cannabis can be addictive, and certainly people, adolescents and children may be the most vulnerable. But we cannot close our eyes to research and the opportunity that we are hearing from patients that for some of them, cannabis can solve their problem. And so what we need to do is do research, number one, to understand what are those conditions. Number two, in order to be able to optimally learn how to use it. And to understand, number three, who is at danger. And it is knowledge that will allow us to optimally take the benefits that may be behind cannabis, as research shows, but on the other hand, also enable us better to do prevention interventions to protect those that are most vulnerable. So thanks very much.
Great job. Thank you very much. Thank you, Doctor. Bobby, do you have something to say?
I'll just echo thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for your leadership and vision and finally getting to closure on this issue. This is a question, a scientific question, that has divided our country for many, many years. And there are valid claims on both sides. On one side, patients and physicians attest that cannabinoids and THC can have miraculous effects on chronic pain, on epilepsy, on PTSD, on chemotherapy-induced nausea. My friend Howard Kessler, without whom we wouldn't be here today, drove this change in the schedule. And he did it because of his own experience in mitigating the impacts of chemotherapy. There's nothing to gain from this. He just saw something that worked for him, that worked for thousands of other Americans, and he wants to make it available to them. On the other side, there are valid claims about the negative impacts, about addiction, about psychosis, about adverse public health impacts, and impacts particularly on young people. So we haven't been, the evidence on all of these is anecdotal and it's hypothetical because we have not been able to do scientific studies. There is no standardized dosing. And if you don't have standardized dosing, any study that you do is comparing apples to pears. And we don't know the difference between botanicals and synthetics and all of these questions we're now going to be able to answer. 5 administrations have promised to act on this issue. The Biden administration promised to do this, and the proposal began during the Biden administration. It got mired down in the chaos and inertia and disorganization of that. And I want to thank President Trump, who made the promise during the 2024 election that he was going to come in and solve this issue, that he was going to take decisive action, and he has kept that promise today. And so thank you for President Trump for your vision. And because of that, we will have answers very soon. This will finally allow us to study this issue and to answer these questions for the American people.
Thank you very much, Bobby. Howard Kessler, a friend of mine, one of the most successful people in the country, came to see me on more than one occasion, actually. And he had some real difficulty about 3.5, 4 years ago, and he went through hell. And during his going through hell, he probably sampled everything you can sample when you're going through that, Howard. Sure. And he came to me, he said, there's been nothing like this, and we're going to have to take a good, strong look at it, and that's what he asked me to do. And others have likewise said that, many others. I mean, you know, again, it's I've never been inundated by so many people as I have about this particular reclassification. And I don't know that you have anything to say, Howard. If you'd like, you could say whatever you
I
like.
just want to help the people 65 and over and make a difference in their lives. And we have machines and talent that could do it, not in 8-year clinical trials, but in a year. And we're going to prove that may change the world, really, in healthcare. So thank you, Mr. President.
And I'm far younger than 65, so this does not pertain to me. Thank you. I don't want it, okay? I'm not going to be taking it, but a lot of people do want it. A lot of people need it, and thank you, Howard, for really opening a lot of eyes. Okay, we'll sign it. We'll take some questions from the press. You can ask the doctors some questions, and it's an honor to do this. Well, that's a good one. We rate that. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Any questions, please?
Mr. President,
Yes.
a health-related question on your health care plan. You've said you want to make direct payments to Americans, but these Obamacare subsidies are expiring now in a matter of just a few days. More than 20 million Americans are now bracing for their premiums to skyrocket. Are you going
Because
to let
of
this
Obama.
happen, or
Yeah,
will you
because-
intervene?
Yeah, they will skyrocket because it was never any good. I'd like to see the money that is going to the insurance companies by the hundreds of billions of dollars. You know, their stocks are up 1,400%, 1,800%, and 1,624%. Their stocks are up through the roof over a fairly short period of time because they're getting vast amounts of money. I want that money to go to the people directly and let the people buy their own health care. And they'll get much better health care than they get with the Unaffordable Care Act, as it's known by a lot of people. It is virtually unaffordable for people. It's a bad thing. We can have a great thing. Let the money go directly to the people and let them buy their own health care.
But this is an urgent problem, Mr. President. Is there anything you can do now, Mr. President?
Can I answer, Mr.
This
President?
is going to be right now, as far as I'm concerned. Go ahead.
We just got data today. We have federal exchanges where people come shopping for the ACA. And the president hasn't heard this yet, but we've talked to the team. The percentage change from last year was down 2.7 to 2.8%. Not the massive numbers that have been predicted. And there's many possible reasons for this. But right now, Americans are signing up for these programs, despite all the things that have been going on. 2.8% is a tiny fraction of what many had claimed would happen. And I think it speaks to the fact the American people appreciate these ACA plans are already subsidized over 80%. So it's a good deal, even if you don't get the extra 15, 20%.
It's a great solution. to much better health care at a much lower cost. Yeah, please.
But do you want Congress to extend these ACA subsidies?
Well, I'd like not to be able to do it. I'd like to get right into this, and I'd ask Oz this question in particular, but I'd like to see us get right into this. I don't know why we have to extend. This could be done rapidly if the Democrats would come along. We have a problem. The insurance companies own the Democrat Party. They own it. And the Democrats having a hard time. They give a lot of money to the Democrats. Very little money to Republicans, by the way. A lot of money to Democrats. And they're going to have to decide, do they want to do the right thing, or do they want to be beholden to the insurance companies? They're making a fortune. I want the money to go to the people. Go ahead, Oz. How would you say that?
I agree with the president. We have some ideas out there. Congress is working through some concepts. But I just want to emphasize that the ACAs are not imploding based on the data we just received from the federal marketplace.
This can go very quickly, actually. Yes, please.
Mr. President, can I ask you clarify something for me on the Federal Reserve? How many people are you interviewing for the Fed chairman, and what did you think of Chris Waller?
I think he's great. I mean, he's been a man who's been there a long time, somebody that I was very involved with in the sense of his career, and he's a fantastic man. I met him yesterday, again.
So how many people are you looking at?
We're talking to 3 or 4. I think every one of them would be a good choice, honestly.
Michelle Bowman?
We'll be making a decision pretty quick.
Is Michelle Bowman on that list too? Are you going to interview her?
She's fantastic. She's a fantastic person.
Thank you, Mr. President. Some GOP lawmakers have written to you in recent days saying they're concerned this executive order could normalize drug use for youth. How would you respond to them?
You're talking about this particular today? Well, I think I'd let one of the doctors respond to it because he can do it a lot better than me. But I can only tell you that when you see polls of 82% of the people want this, when I have friends that are really, really sick and they've gone through, I guess you could say, unfortunately, I don't want to become too involved in it because I don't want it happening. But these are people that really know what's going on. Very smart people. This is one of the most successful people in the country and a very brilliant guy. And when they go through this horrible ordeal of cancer or other things, and they realize that this is something that makes them feel better without all of the side effects of some of the drugs where you're just totally knocked out and out of it. But I'd like to have one of the doctors maybe respond because you people do it better than anybody.
I'm happy to respond.
Yes.
I mean, and my answer is we have had cannabis scheduled for how long? And it hasn't protected neither the adolescents nor the adults. We have 20 million people in the United States with a cannabis use disorder. This is not legalizing it. It's making easier to do research so that we can use it when it is indicated and optimally.
So it's also a big part of this is research. In other words, you'll now have a much larger sample and you'll be able to see if it's as good as many people say it is. I mean, people say it is beyond good, and you'll be able to find that out now.
On housing, you talked in your address last night about housing.
Yeah.
Are you still considering a national emergency over housing?
I'm looking at it.
What would that look like? What would that mobilize?
You know, there's 2 thoughts on housing. You have a lot of people have housing that because we have such a strong time and such a strong market, their houses are very valuable. It's a big part of their net worth, their house. I don't want to knock those numbers down because I want them to continue to have a big value for the house. At the same time, I want to make it possible for young people out there and other people to buy housing. In a way, they're at conflict. In other words, you create a lot of housing all of a sudden, and it drives the housing prices down. So I want to take care of the people that have houses that have a value to the house that they never thought possible, that have sort of made them wealthy and happy, and especially in their later years. Got to be careful with that. I want to keep them up. At the same time, I want to make it possible for people to go buy houses. Daniel, please.
Mr. President, you announced the Warriors dividend last night in your primetime speech. Very patriotic, very generous. What was the rationale and the thought process? How did you come up with the idea? What made you want to give back to
Well,
our
the
troops?
1776 was easy to come up with because we're actually at 1775. The number was 1775, and I said, wow. I think we can afford $1 more. But they came up to me, it was $1,775. So I said, well, let's add $1 to it. I think we can find that. And very simple, we've had a military that, in my opinion, by other presidents was not treated well. They're incredible. They're our finest people. They're protecting us. And because of tariffs, we're taking in billions and billions of dollars more than we ever have before. With no inflation, by the way. With no inflation. You saw the inflation numbers. They just came out today. What great timing. Practically no inflation. And yet we're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars. And this is small potatoes by comparison, but it's a way of taking care of our warriors, our soldiers. And I appreciate that question, Daniel.
Yeah, and Caroline,
that was an easy one.
She just posted on X, your press secretary, that the board members of the Kennedy Center voted unanimously to rename it the Trump Kennedy Center. What is your reaction to that?
Well, I was honored by it. The board is a very distinguished board, most distinguished people in the country. And I was surprised by it. I was honored by it. You know, we're saving the building. We saved the building. The building was in such bad shape, both physically, financially, and every other way. And now it's very solid, very strong. We have something going on television, I guess, on the 23rd December. I think it's going to get very big ratings. And the Kennedy Center is really back strongly. It's in very bad shape, very, very bad shape physically. And we were also to get Congress to put up a lot of money and other people to put up a lot of money. We had a lot of donors come in for record-setting numbers. So we saved the Kennedy Center, and I was really, this was brought up by one of the very distinguished board members, and they voted on it. And there's a lot of board members, and they voted unanimously. So I was very honored by it. Thank you.
Mr. President, will you be seeking any authorization from Congress for any land attacks on cartels in Venezuela?
For anyone?
For any land attacks on drug cartels in Venezuela?
I wouldn't mind telling them, but it's not a big deal. I don't have to tell them. It's been proven. But I wouldn't mind at all. I just hope they wouldn't leak it. You know, people leak it. They are politicians and they leak like a sieve. But I'd have no problem doing that.
On that, Mr. President.
Yes, please.
Mr. President, there's a meeting this weekend on Ukraine in Florida. What are you hoping will come out of that meeting?
Well, they're getting close to something, but I hope Ukraine moves quickly. I hope Ukraine moves quickly because Russia's there. And, every time they take too much time, then Russia changes their mind. 27,000 soldiers were killed last month. Think of that. What do you think of that, doctors? 27,000. It's like a half a football stadium. Were killed in 1 month, and it's that way. It's anywhere between 20 and 30,000, mostly soldiers. Also, some people from Kiev and other places, but largely it's the soldiers. They're losing their lives. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. It's the worst since World War II. And you've heard me say I settled 8 wars. Some going on for 35 years, one going on for 37, one going on for 32. And 8 wars, and I thought this would be an easier one. This is because of the animosity, the hatred. It's a little bit more difficult than we thought, but there's a chance we can get this done maybe soon.
Sir.
Remember that 25 to 30,000 people being killed a month, young people being killed a month. Steve, please.
When do you expect to make your announcement about the new Fed chair, sir? Before the end of the year? What do you think?
Over the next couple of weeks. I mean, I don't know before the end of the year, but pretty soon.
And then the Rocky Mount, North Carolina tomorrow night. Tell us what your message is going to be there, sir.
Say what?
When you go to Rocky Mount, North Carolina tomorrow night, what's your message going to be there?
Well, it's not going to be that much different from what I did last night. I mean, we've had tremendous success. We're bringing prices down. We inherited a mess. And part of what we inherited was the worst inflation in 48 years. I say history, but we had the worst inflation. It drove prices up. And now we're bringing those prices down. But I'll be talking about that. I'll be talking about the fact that we secured the border where literally nobody can come into our country illegally anymore. They came in from prisons and mental institutions and drug dealers and, a lot of bad people from all over the world. Venezuela emptied their prisons into our country. We had Tren de Aragua, which supposedly, the doctors don't know this, it's the meanest gang of them all. Okay, doctor? You don't have to know about it. You got other problems. But they let a lot of bad people in here. And So I think I'll be talking about that. I think I'll be talking about the tremendous success we have by sending the National Guard into various cities. D.C. is the ultimate example. People walk to work and they thank me all the time. People in the White House, they just walk to the White House from 10 blocks away. Before I came into office, they couldn't do that. They were getting badly hurt in many cases and beyond hurt, killed. So we were losing people. We were losing, on average, a person a week. Can you believe it? More. And now we haven't lost anybody in a long time. I consider the two people that got so badly hurt, the National Guard, that's a different city. That was terrorism. That was terrorism. And probably terrorism, maybe terrorism, because they were unhappy with the tremendous success we've had, because they don't want to see this country be successful. But Washington, D.C. now is a safe, beautiful city where the restaurants are booming, the town is booming. People walk to the restaurants with their wife or their children and have a good time. We were losing all the restaurants. We were losing our life in this. We were just the whole heritage of Washington, D.C. was down the drain, and we brought it back. And now everybody's thrilled to be here. It's the hottest. It's a part of the hottest country anywhere in the world. We've become, in 10 months, the hottest country anywhere in the world. And I say it all the time, we were a dead country 1.5 years ago.
Do you expect to meet Prime Minister Netanyahu while you're down in Palm Beach?
Yeah, he would like to see me. We haven't set it up formally, but he'd like to see me. We've had great success. Peace in the Middle East, aside from everything else. We now have peace in the Middle East. Yeah, he'll probably come to see me in Florida.
The Egyptians as well? Are they coming
I'd love to have him. El Sisi, he's a friend of mine. Yeah, I'd love to have him. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, press. Let's go. Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Let's go. Let's go. Keep going. Thank you. Thank you, press. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
White House. And coming up next, we'll return live to the White House as the president will sign the National Defense Authorization Act. That'll be from the Oval Office once again. That's slated to start at 6 o'clock. So we have a lot to get to from now until then. And of course, tomorrow night, the president will deliver a speech in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. So we'll have a crew there, of course. RSBN host Robert McNeely live there tomorrow. So a little bit more coverage here today. And of course, hopefully you join us tomorrow for our coverage as well. Let's go to a couple of our sponsors as we continue on with our live broadcast right here on Right Side. Let's go to Matthew Alvarez. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're watching right now. Thank you so much for streaming in with us. Let's go to All Family Pharmacy. You know, here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, we know a couple things. We know that All Family Pharmacy is a great spot because it's an independent pharmacy. And we always try to point you toward companies that actually support your freedom and give you real choices. And that's exactly why we trust All Family Pharmacy. So they're not your traditional pharmacy pushing flu shots. All Family Pharmacy is different. They give you options. They encourage you to take charge of your health and to stay prepared. And they have the right medications on hand before sickness strikes. And of course, during the holidays, that's important. The travel, the cold weather, the family gatherings. This is when, unfortunately, everyone can get sick. So the question is, why wait until someone is miserable and you're scrambling for appointments or pharmacy lines? Well, All Family Pharmacy has everything your family might need. So antivirals, antibiotics, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, mebendazole, even emergency kits and supplements. All doctor reviewed and delivered fast to your door. So while you're out doing that holiday shopping, there's nothing wrong with adding a few essential medications your family might need so you could stock up, stay prepared, and keep your family healthy this holiday season. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. RSBN 10 is the promo code there. And of course, we say Merry Christmas loud and proud here at Right Side Broadcasting Network as well. Let's go to monetary gold as well. So Wall Street veterans are sounding the alarm out there. Many now say gold could climb to $7,000 per troy ounce before President Trump finishes his term. So it's not wild speculation. Experienced investors, economists, and portfolio managers are tracking the indicators. Soaring national debt, unchecked government spending, and a dollar that's losing purchasing power by the day. What's even more revealing is the behavior of central banks. They're trimming their exposure to U.S. treasuries and increasing their gold reserves. They recognize the pattern. They know that paper currencies eventually fail, but gold has remained a reliable store of value throughout history. And that's why we recommend Monetary Gold. With more than 25 years in business, an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, and top 5 rankings from Consumer Affairs and Retirement Living, they've earned a reputation for trust and expertise. So you can get an info kit. All you have to do is call that number there, 888-617-7994, or go to rsbnforthegold.com for that info kit to get the ball rolling for Monetary Gold. One more sponsor before we continue on with our live broadcast, callsheet.com/RSBN. Of course, if you want to download the app, you can do so. You can use the QR code, or you can, just go to callsheet.com/RSBN or actually get the app. So if you're looking to check out all these polls that are on there or bet or trade, you can do that. More than 1 million people use Call Sheet. Of course, it's fun to check them out on X as well, just to see the different polls for all sorts of topics. Pretty much name a topic, it's on callsheet.com. So check it out. Great sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. It is 4:42, Thursday, December 18th. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Good evening to those of you watching on the East Coast, and good afternoon to the rest of you guys in the Central Time Zone and the Mountain Time Zone and out there in the Pacific Time Zone. Thank you so much for streaming in. Again, we'll go back to the White House at about 6 o'clock for the Oval Office signing there, where President Trump will sign the National Defense Authorization Act. You'll hear all about it coming up in just a bit. Meantime, let's go now to the Department of Health press conference, the Department of Health and Human Services press conference from earlier today. First, let's hear from RFK Jr. once again, and then we'll come right back here on Right Side.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you to all the officials who are joining us today, and I'm going to acknowledge many of you by name. It's a long list. Chairman of the Federal Trade Commission, Andrew Ferguson, Senator Bill Cassidy, Senator Marsha Blackburn, Senator Roger Marshall, Senator James Lankford, Congressman Doug LaMalfa, Congressman John Joyce, Congresswoman Diana Harshberger, Congressman Bob Onder, Congressman Robert Aderholt, Congressman Dan Crenshaw, Congressman Tim Walberg, Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, Deputy Secretary Jim O'Neill, Administrator Mehmet Oz, Director Jay Bhattacharya, Commissioner Marty McCary, and Admiral Brian Christine. And a special thanks to Chloe Cole for being with us today. To bravely share her odyssey. Doctors assume a solemn obligation to protect children. Yet doctors across the country now provide needless and irreversible sex-rejecting procedures that violate their sacred Hippocratic oath by endangering the very lives that they are sworn to safeguard. The American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, peddled the lie that chemical and surgical sex-rejecting procedures could be good for children who suffer from gender dysphoria. They betrayed the estimated 300,000 American youth ages 13 to 17, conditioned to believe that sex can be changed. They betrayed their Hippocratic oath to do no harm. So-called gender-affirming care has inflicted lasting physical and psychological damage on vulnerable young people. This is not medicine, it is malpractice. We're done with junk science driven by ideological pursuits, not the well-being of children. A peer-reviewed report published by the HHS Office of the Assistant Secretary for Health last month confirms that sex-rejecting procedures impose medical dangers and lasting harm on children who receive these interventions. So today we are taking 6 decisive actions guided by gold standard science and the week 1 executive order from President Trump to protect children from chemical and surgical mutilation. This morning I signed a declaration. Sex-rejecting procedures are neither safe nor effective treatment for children with gender dysphoria. These procedures fail to meet professionally recognized standards of care. Medical professionals or entities providing sex-rejecting procedures to children are out of compliance with these standards of health care. This declaration is a clear directive to providers to follow the science and the overwhelming body of evidence that these procedures hurt, not help, children. Additionally, CMS is proposing 2 new rules. The first rule will bar hospitals that participate in Medicare and Medicaid, which is almost every hospital, from performing these dangerous and harmful procedures. The second rule prohibits the federal Medicaid dollars from funding the sex-rejecting procedures on minors. The FDA is issuing warning letters to 12 manufacturers of breast binders, which are medical devices used for purposes such as assistance in recovery from cancer-related mastectomies. The FDA is telling these companies that the illegal marketing of breast binders to children for the purpose of treating gender dysphoria commits significant regulatory violations and requires swift congressional or corrective action. If the manufacturers don't comply, they could face enforcement actions, including product seizures. Furthermore, HHS is also moving to reverse the Biden administration's attempt to include gender dysphoria within the definition of disability. My uncle, Ted Kennedy, was the primary author of the Americans with Disabilities Act and of the 1978 amendments that strengthened the Rehabilitation Act. The Biden-era amendments that designated gender dysphoria as a disability served the commercial interest of a predatory, multi-billion-dollar industry that betrayed the original intention of those laws and gendered widespread public resentments against those laws among the American people and discredited the statutes in the public mind. These are statutes that were designed to protect the most vulnerable Americans, and the misuse of these statutes for these purposes injures the statutes themselves and injures other people who are entitled to that protection and who Americans want to see protected. Our proposed rule will reassure recipients of HHS funding that policies preventing or limiting sex-rejecting procedures do not violate disability non-discrimination requirements. Finally, our Assistant Secretary of Health, Admiral Brian Christine, today signed a public health message to inform healthcare providers, families, and policymakers that current evidence does not support claims that puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries are safe and effective treatments for pediatric gender dysphoria. These announcements are grounded in evidence and shaped by compassion. President Trump has made child protection a national priority. The Make Our Children Healthy Again strategy demonstrates that commitment. Sex-rejecting procedures rob children of their futures. The Maha Commission strategy report calls for an end to over-medicalization of our children. Unnecessary medical interventions drive big money interests that push sex-rejecting treatments. Today's revenue for sex-rejecting drugs and surgeries in 2023 were estimated in one study to exceed $4.4 billion and on track to exceed $7.8 billion by 2030. One doctor was recorded callously describing sex-rejecting procedures as a big moneymaker. Hospitals rake in millions of dollars by convincing boys and girls that a lifetime of off-label prescriptions for estrogen and testosterone blockers, chest reconstruction surgeries, and more are the only way to achieve true happiness and belonging in life. It's wrong. The Trump administration will not stand by while ideology, misinformation, and propaganda push vulnerable young people into decisions they cannot fully understand and that they can never reverse. On my watch, HHS will stand for radical transparency and informed consent. We follow the evidence, we employ gold standard science, we honor the moral obligation to do no harm. There is divine worth in every person, and it shines most brightly in our children. That worth commands us to protect them. And as long as I serve as HHS Secretary, this agency will do so. Thank you all very, very much.
All right, so we're going to go from RFK Jr., the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. Then we're going to go to Dr. Mehmet Oz in just a minute. First, let's go to a couple of our sponsors here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. We could start with angelpaste.com out of Spring, Texas, of course. If you're looking to get maybe a last-second Christmas gift, kind of it's last second. I guess if it has to be ordered and shipped and all that, it's kind of last second. But angelpaste.com is the place to get that. The Miracle Cream's right there. That's the flagship product, but there's a lot of other great products as well. Use the RSBN promo code. It goes quite the long way when it comes to getting a lot of discounted prices there. So use that RSBN promo code at checkout. Angelpaste.com. Let's move on to covepure.com as well. You see there a beautiful machine. This is awesome because at the end of the day, it's filtering the water from the tap, and then 99.9% of the chemicals and the stuff that's in that tap water gets taken out. And then there you go. You have healthier water. It tastes better. And also you can have it cold, warm, or hot. And for a limited time right now, $250 off for that holiday sale. So if you've been looking for a new water filtration system that looks sleek and it's perfect for the kitchen counter there, you can go to Cove Pure. It's Drink Pure, Live Pure, Cove Pure. $250 off again for a limited time, and use that /RSBN, covepure.com/RSBN for that great product. You see that QR code as well on your screen, a great Christmas gift. And if it's not a gift for someone, maybe just get one for yourself. It's like a run-of-the-mill thing, right? Everybody drinks, at least I think, water. And who wants to drink tap water, right? So you have something there that protects what matters right there, covepure.com. Let's move on to Venice AI. So these other, AI programs that are out there, they don't always, you're able to have the information that you have on there. It's not encrypted, right? So with Venice AI, you have an opportunity to have things that are encrypted. So you have more privacy. Those other AI programs can now reference all of your past conversations. So nobody really feels comfortable with that, especially if you just are typing in sensitive questions, that kind of thing. Venice AI utilizes leading open source AI models to deliver text, code, and image generation to your web browser. So there's no downloads, no installations of anything. They don't spy or censor the AI at all. So messages are encrypted, and your conversation history is stored only in your web browser. So check it out. It's a beautiful display, a great personal assistant of sorts, right, with artificial intelligence there. So great sponsor here on Right Side Broadcasting Network, Venice AI. All right, so it's 4:55. We're approaching the top of the hour here on Right Side, and we have a lot to get to yet. Of course, we're going to see the president sign this National Defense Authorization Act at about 6 o'clock. Until then, we have a lot to get to. First, let's talk about this. Tomorrow in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, there is a huge speech by President Trump. We'll be there as well. RSBN host Robert McNeely will be there live, and I'll be here in the studio as we cover that event. In the meantime, let's get back to HHS. For Dr. Mehmet Oz, we have, again, a lot to get to, a lot of material to get to yet, as we're tracking stories all across the social media sphere, if you'd like to call it that. And things like freeing Tina Peters, it's still on our mind. And I spoke with the attorney, Peter Tickton, pretty recently. We're going to have some of that interview shortly as well. So let's return to HHS for Dr. Mehmet Oz.
Sorry, I thought I was last. I guess I'm not. Secretary Kennedy, thank you very much. His bold words tonight reflect a deep passion that he's expressed since very early in this administration. And it represents why HHS needs to be in the forefront of issues like this. The white paper that was crafted, it's several hundred pages long, but is actually a superb document, created a foundation for CMS, my agency, Medicare and Medicaid, to take bold action as well to address some of the challenges. But I want to take a second and outline where we are right now. There's an op-ed that Steph Carlton, my chief of staff, was over here somewhere, and I penned that just issued while we've been sitting here, and it highlights some of these issues. But of course, it all came out of the executive order of the president protecting children from chemical and surgical mutilation. Simple title, descriptive and accurate in its desire to do just that. And today we will deliver that to the president and to the secretary. Many of you, as you walked through the front portal of this building, the Hubert Humphrey building, saw Senator Humphrey's quote on the side wall. And he speaks about the moral obligation of government to take care of those at the dawn of life, our children. 53% of children in America are in Medicaid or CHIP programs. So we provide insurance to most children, and commercial insurance follow us. But we are in a weird place in America where we have mixed politics and medicine. And do you know what you get when you mix politics and medicine? Politics. There is no medicine left. We witnessed that with bizarre statements, predatory actions, and many other activities that I think have forced children to the tip of the spear where they have brunt the burden of this toxic combination. We've been told that permanently altering bodies of children, and the children are told this as well, will bring them lasting peace. But few have achieved the inner peace promised by these charlatans, and the talking heads, the media personalities, the social media posts, all these have created a dishonest narrative. And of course, many of these children are left with the most tragic parts of all the treatments that they've succumbed themselves to. Many physicians as well have been pressured into compliance. The white paper outlines this, with the dangerous progressive ideology that treats children like lab mice. And because often in medical school you're taught to go along to get along, they have not been willing to rear their heads and bravely say what they know to be right, which is that these procedures are wrong. Individuals who question their sexuality are treated by medical professionals on the fast track, that's what it's called, approach to care, resulting in drastic interventions that merely increase the distress they're already suffering from. Under politicized medicine, people suffer long-term consequences. Let me go through the three major categories. Puberty blockers, reduce bone density, alter brain development, which is a real problem when you're 11, 12, 13 years of age, and disrupt sexual function for the rest of your life, oftentimes. Cross-sex hormones cause irreversible changes, including infertility, loss of sexual function, even cardiovascular issues, as well as long-term endocrine problems. And of course, the surgical interventions where you remove healthy organs, despicable and reprehensible as it is, permanently alter appearances and destroy children's lives. So let's talk a moment right now about the big question. This dangerous fast-track approach in invasive treatment, what it really does is slap a Band-Aid on a much deeper pathology, a much deeper problem, the underlying issue of gender dysphoria. It denies patients the opportunity to be seen for who they really are. The doctor can't look them in the eyes and treat them like a child that's confused and lost and needs help. They become an opportunity. They become eventually a victim. Reasonable evidence-based objections that a child's confusion might resolve over time have been ignored, even though it makes common sense, and it turns out from numerous studies now in Europe to be true. Again, we outlined these in the op-ed. And this is not how clinicians respond to the care of other pediatric issues, but it's how we respond to pediatric adolescent mental distress. And the medically honest approach is to at least start slowly, the least invasive possible, psychotherapy, counseling, including family counseling, evaluation of other conditions like ADHD and autism, and of course treatment of the anxiety and depression that so often is included with this diagnosis. There's lots of reasons we're having this problem. Social media is obviously a concern. There's been an explosion of discussions within children's groups about these topics. The surge has also been accompanied by healthcare professionals advocating that there's not going to be any opportunity to push a child to think twice about the decision they might have wandered into mistakenly in a whimsical moment. And 57% increase in suicide rates over the last great data we have, which is from the teens, is also a concern, with teenage children bearing the brunt of this. American taxpayers should not have to foot the bill for ideologically driven experiments on our nation's youth, and hospitals that we deem must meet the minimum quality standards of care and safety should not be conducting these experiments when we know so little about what is happening with our youth. Now the important part. For these reasons, and I can go on and on, this document, the white paper that the Secretary commissioned is over 300 pages long, we're taking major steps at CMS to stop a funding process that has led to irreversible medical interventions with two major actions. The first, we're announcing a notice of proposed rulemaking that ends taxpayer funding of sex-rejecting procedures for children in Medicaid and CHIP, full stop. We don't provide health care to every child, but at 53%, we've got most, and we're not going to let taxpayer money go to hurt these children, and those children will no longer be hurt with this ideology. We know that inflicting these procedures on young people costs them and the Medicaid system countless dollars, not just in medical bills, but also all kinds of downstream issues, while providers reap the rewards. Too many providers inappropriately profit from carrying out these destructive procedures, and I'm just going to go through this grotesque laundry list of prices just so you're on the same page with what Secretary Kennedy started teasing at. According to a 2022 JAMA data, so it's very recent, the typical vaginoplasty, a procedure a child does not need, costs $60,000. Shockingly, a phalloplasty, the creation of a penis, costs on average in America, according to this data, high quality, $150,000 per child. I do believe, with doing some work, that these prices have continued to increase with increasing manufactured demand. And I must point out that the creation of a vagina, in that case of a phalloplasty, or a scrotoplasty where you add testicles, that's extra. This is a pathology that has afflicted the medical profession. It is shameful that clinicians have profiteered off this. I do not understand how it could possibly have been tolerated by the leadership of these institutions, but it will no longer be funded. And I can tell you, if they're so diehard desirous of helping children and they don't get paid, the question is, will they do these procedures? And I think we know the answer. The second big thing, that's $250 million over the next decade of savings to the taxpayer, but that's irrelevant to this issue compared to the harm to the next generation, to our future, because kids are always our future. Second, to reinforce the need to protect our children, we are announcing that certified Medicare and Medicaid hospitals, pretty much everyone in the hospital in the country, will no longer be permitted to perform certain sex-rejecting procedures on children. Any hospital that does offer sex-rejecting procedures to vulnerable populations of pediatric-age kids will no longer be able to participate in the Medicare and Medicaid program. We want our hospitals returning to healing, not harming the patients entrusted with their care, or they're going to pay a very steep price. These actions are part of an all-government effort led by President Trump and spearheaded by Secretary Kennedy to protect vulnerable individuals and genuinely make America healthy again. This is not just smart, science-based health policy. It is our moral duty, as Senator Humphrey mentioned 50 years ago. I'm passionate about this issue. My whole team is passionate about this issue. Secretary Kennedy, God bless you for pushing forward on this.
All right, so that was from earlier today at the Department of Health and Human Services. We heard from RFK Jr., of course, the secretary there, and then, of course, Dr. Mehmet Oz. This live stream broadcast, as we continue live here, brought to you by a number of great sponsors, including All Family Pharmacy. You know, here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, we always try to point you toward companies that actually support your freedom and give you real choices, and that's exactly why we trust All Family Pharmacy. They're not your traditional pharmacy pushing flu shots. All Family Pharmacy is different. They give you options. They encourage you to take charge of your health, stay prepared, and have the right medications on hand before sickness hits. And of course, during the holidays, that's important. The travel, the cold weather, depending on what part of the country you're in, of course. The family gatherings, this is when, unfortunately, a lot of people can get sick. So why wait until someone is miserable and you're scrambling for appointments or pharmacy lines? Because All Family Pharmacy has everything your family might need. So antivirals, antibiotics, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, mebendazole, even emergency kits and supplements, all doctor reviewed and delivered fast to your door. So while you're out doing that holiday shopping, there's nothing wrong with adding a few essential medications your family might need. You can stock up, stay prepared, and keep your family healthy this season. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Use that RSBN 10 promo code. It gets you that 10% off. Let's go from All Family to mypillow.com/RSBN. Merry Christmas, of course. Save up to 80% at mypillow.com. So go to that website, but go ahead and slash with RSBN there as well. So you could save with that code RSBN. More than 2,000 products to choose from, a lot of great quality products. I know my family and I, we have a bunch of them. A lot of people do, right? So go ahead and maybe purchase some more. And also always good to purchase for Christmas as well. So mypillow.com/RSBN. The great Mike Lindell, of course, officially running for governor in Minnesota. So it'll be quite the gubernatorial race there. Hopefully Mike wins that thing and turns things around for Minnesota. And I'm sure the people there that are on the right side of history are saying, let's go, Mike. Let's get the job done. Let's get it done there. And let's go to one more thing. If you'd like to donate to Right Side Broadcasting Network, all you have to do is text RSBN to 801-801 or go to rsbnetwork.com/donate. Two great spots to donate to us here at the network. Also, for those of you that do send checks or cash, that kind of thing, and a number of people do. So we have a P.O. box for those of you that would like to do that. 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Well, it's beautiful down here in Alabama, by the way. The weather is fantastic. It's in the 60s throughout the week coming up, a little bit of 50s. It does get a little cold sometimes, but a little different than my home and home neck of the woods, of course, the state of Pennsylvania. But we'll see. I'm going to be checking out Pennsylvania in just a bit, of course, as it's the holiday season and Christmas time. So, all right, we're looking live there outside of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. We see that the president will sign that National Defense Authorization Act. If you're wondering what that is, well, let's wait and see at 6 o'clock. I know that the president will be speaking about that. Also, we're 7 days from Christmas, 14 days from 2026. Can you believe it? 2 weeks. It'll be 2026. We're 198 days from our country's 250th birthday. I'll have more about that later in the broadcast as the president is speaking about Freedom 250. And we're also 320 days from the midterm elections. And speaking of elections, I caught up with Tina Peters' attorney, Peter Tickton, recently and asked him if it would take the U.S. Marshals to get Tina out of jail. Here's what Mr. Tickton had to say.
It could happen, but I think before that would happen, I think that she would probably be declared also a material witness in the investigations that are ongoing. What's of great importance that it needs to get out there, people need to understand that when President Trump says that there's a truckload of evidence that can prove that the machines basically have corrupted the election and the election in 2020 was stolen, it's so important because the election of 2020 wasn't stolen. The nation was stolen. For 4 years, we were under the governance of a government that was put in by foreign actors. In other words, we lost the war without having a shot fired. So, we got our country back. We got our president in place. Now it's time to consolidate that, and there's no way to do that without the world knowing that this is what happened, that we're facing a force of evil that basically took over the United States. We got it back, we're taking it back, but it's not going to stay in our hands unless we have free elections in 2026. And the only way to have free elections in 2026 is that there's going to need to be an order from the president that declares an election emergency. And that's not going to happen unless the people understand that there really is an election emergency. And I have been one of the people involved in looking at the evidence itself. I can tell you there are these computers that cannot be used. It has to be papered ballots. It has to be, and the only reason it has to be is that's the only way that we're going to be able to have a fair election. And then let's just see what happens in terms of the numbers of people in the House of Representatives. Then let's see what happens to the numbers of people in the Senate. And we're going to see that common sense is.
All right, so there was Peter Tickton, of course, the attorney for Tina Peters. I know that, we saw President Trump pardon Tina, but the state charges are still there. So we'll see what happens there. We're hoping for her release and praying for that. I mean, 9 years. 9 years. Anyway, we can get more into that in a bit. It's 5/11, Thursday, December 18th. Let's go to a few sponsors before we continue on. We have some live interviews that will be happening soon. But let's go to Monetary Gold. As you see there, Wall Street veterans are saying, you know what? They're sounding the alarm. Many now say gold could climb to $7,000 an ounce before President Trump finishes his term. And it's not wild speculation. There are experienced investors and economists and portfolio managers. They're tracking the indicators that soaring national debt is out there, the unchecked government spending, and a dollar that's losing purchasing power by the day. So what's even more revealing is the behavior of central banks. They're trimming their exposure to U.S. treasuries and increasing their gold reserves. So they're recognizing the pattern. They know that paper currencies eventually fail, but gold has remained a reliable store of value throughout history. That's why we rely on Monetary Gold. With more than 25 years in business, an A+ Better Business Bureau rating, and top 5 rankings from Consumer Affairs and Retirement Living, they've earned that reputation for trust and expertise. So you can give them a call. You can get that info kit, 888-617-7994, or go to rsbnforthegold.com today. Let's move on to our next sponsor here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. As you see, it's Kalshi.com. There's 3 ways that you can get to Kalshi. 1, that QR code that you see on your screen. 2, you can download the app. Or 3, Kalshi.com/RSBN. So if you're wondering what the heck's Kalshi, well, if you're looking to bet or trade or just check out polls on various topics out there, anything from weather, science, technology, sports, politics, faith, whatever, you can check it all out right there at Kalshi.com/RSBN. More than 1 million users on there, and a lot of people liking to see what the polls are for a lot of questions. I mean, sometimes it goes even down to the hyper-local question of, like, what's the weather in name a city going to be today? And people will actually bet, trade, or just check out the polls on the weather. But there's so much more as well. So Kalshi.com is the place to go. Great sponsor here at Right Side. Let's go to our third sponsor of this segment, AngelPace.com. Spring, Texas, a shout out to the Lone Star State. And there's a lot of products on AngelPace.com that you can check out and use that RSBN promo code at checkout so you can save some money, but also get a great product with the great patriots there at AngelPace.com. They hire military veterans, longtime sponsor here at Right Side, and we're glad to have them with us here on Right Side Broadcasting Network as it's 5:13 Eastern Time. All right, so we know that President Trump, at about 6 o'clock, he'll be signing that National Defense Authorization Act from the Oval Office. So we'll have that live. The president will be speaking in Rocky Mount, North Carolina tomorrow. We'll have a live crew there, of course. As for President Trump's speech last night, before we get to our next live interview, the White House released a number of charts about what it was like under Joe Biden versus what it's like under Donald Trump. And you can see there the Biden price increases and the Trump price increases. You can see, or decreases, pardon me. So obviously under Joe Biden, things were out of hand, as you guys can tell from the past 4 years of that regime. And then we're seeing this chart from the White House right here, seeing that President Trump's price decreases that have happened. We could check out the next slide as well, as a lot of what he talked about yesterday are in these charts. Biden food price increases and Trump food price decreases. So we've heard all the things when it comes to all the different kinds of food products out there as well. So we're hoping for the best for this country and all sections of this country. Seeing this from the White House, of course, and kind of reflecting exactly what President Trump was speaking about just yesterday from the White House. I believe that was the diplomatic room that he spoke from. And if you missed that speech, you can always replay it on Right Side Broadcasting Network as well, as we are live, of course, on this Thursday, December 18th. All right, let's go now to Jim Quick with the North Carolina Faith and Freedom Coalition. Sir, thank you for joining us. It's under tougher, obviously tragic circumstances. I understand that the former NASCAR driver, Greg Biffle, once received an award from your coalition for helping Hurricane Helene victims, but then earlier today, Greg tragically lost his life in that small plane crash in North Carolina. So how is the coalition feeling right now? Unfortunately, sir, we do not hear you right now. I'm not sure if our technical having a technical issue or not, but we'll come back to you here in just a second. Hopefully we can get that audio fixed there. In the meantime, we'll go back to Jim Quick with the North Carolina Faith and Freedom Coalition as soon as we get that taken care of. Why don't we do this? Let's take a commercial break. We'll get that squared away. We'll be right back here on Right Side.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.
All right, welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. Joining us once again is Jim Quick with the North Carolina Faith and Freedom Coalition. Let's talk about Greg Biffle. Sounds like he was, I don't know, a great person. I never met him, but from what I'm reading, quite a great person.
Just a great guy. It's a difficult day for our coalition and also everybody here in the Charlotte area. Kind of the heart of NASCAR, and all the teams are based in this Charlotte area. And such a humble guy. An honor for us to recognize him and all the work that he did in Western North Carolina after Hurricane Helene. He was flying his own personal helicopter into the district to rescue families that couldn't get out, stayed there, provided all kinds of relief for families, and then continued to raise money and awareness for disaster recovery. He just rolled his sleeves up and went to work, not just for a photo op, but certainly for the long term, well after all the news crews left Western North Carolina.
Exactly. So, the Hurricane Helene victims there, Greg was really helping out a lot. And we do have a photo of Greg Biffle. He's alongside a number of people that received an award. He's to the furthest, to the left on the screen there. I'm not sure if we have the photo up or not right now, but it's all the way to the left is Greg. And, that one award that he received from you guys, talk to us about your organization and how you guys got connected with Greg Biffle.
Yeah, we do an annual Salt and Light conference, and we have national speakers and regional speakers come to our conference. Our 2024 conference was set to kick off the day the hurricane hit, and it was in Western North Carolina. And so everything that we had as a nonprofit organization immediately got turned into relief for citizens in McDowell County. So as FEMA came in, we were giving them our food, giving them our resources, helping set up the venue for first responders. And we, 1 year later, we held our event again in the same church. And we really wanted to recognize these selfless heroes all across the district. And Greg was one of those folks. And he was so humble. He came in, he just sat down. I didn't even realize he was in the audience. He didn't come up. He didn't make a grandstand. He just was there as a common everyday citizen. And it was such an honor for us to recognize him and all the men you've seen in that picture who selflessly rolled up their sleeves and helped their fellow citizens not only rescue them, but also stay with them for that whole entire year.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of people that stood up for the other people that were victims was great to see. Just American helping American. And we know, I believe wasn't that during the Biden administration, right? Wasn't that all of the different storms, they all,
Yes,
so
that's
many
right,
of
right
them.
during the Biden administration.
Yeah,
That's
so
correct.
they weren't doing anything to help out the people. So it's great to have just people like Greg doing those things. And then back to your organization, the North Carolina Faith and Freedom Coalition. Tell us about the genesis of that and why you started it.
Sure. We were established in 2019, and we go across North Carolina educating evangelical and Catholic voters on the importance of voting. And so we'll take biblical issues and really align each of the candidates across our state to let voters know where they stand on those issues. And so we've done that last year in 24. We distributed 497,000 voter guides across North Carolina to impact that 2024 election, focusing primarily on individuals that identify themselves as faith-based voters, but perhaps had not voted before. So in North Carolina, we visited 360,000 homes of individuals that had not voted before, and they actually ended up voting due to our efforts and other outreaches across the state. And of course, President Trump won the state by only some 180,000 votes. So certainly our efforts of reaching out to evangelical and Catholic voters made a difference in 24.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, North Carolina, a huge swing state there, and winning that for President Trump. Great to see that in 24. Now we're, of course, into December 18th, 2025. Thank you guys so much for what you are doing for North Carolina and just being on the program with us, and our condolences for the loss there with Greg Biffle. It's something that I saw today, and I knew he was a former NASCAR driver, and then I saw his X page that connected with you guys, and just heartfelt condolences. But Nick, thank you so much for joining us. Jim, quick, with the North Carolina Faith and Freedom Coalition.
Thank you for having me on.
Definitely. All right, it's 5:23, Thursday, December 18th. Again, it's, these kind of stories, man, it's just not easy just to go from story to story. These are real life things happening out there. And, a lot of times in news, people just kind of gloss over it, move on to the next. It's something I had to do in mainstream media back in the day, and it's not real. You gotta be real. Just like you guys are watching right now, or maybe listening, or maybe you're watching on replay. What affects us? What's the real aspect of things, and I don't know, just standing there for all the things that we believe in. And we know what that is: God, family, country, and freedom. All right, so let's do this. Let's go to a couple of our sponsors, and then we're going to go to some more content that we have here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Let's start out with this sponsor right here, as it's 5:24 Eastern Time. All Family Pharmacy, of course. Here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, we always try to point you toward companies that actually support your freedom and give you real choices, and that's exactly why we trust All Family Pharmacy. They're not pushing these flu shots out there. So All Family Pharmacy is different. They give you options. They encourage you to take charge of your health, stay prepared, and have the right medications on hand before sickness hits. And of course, during the holidays, that's important. The travel, the cold weather, the family gatherings. This is when, unfortunately, everyone can get sick. So the question is, why wait until someone is miserable and you're scrambling for appointments or pharmacy lines? All Family Pharmacy has everything your family might need: antivirals, antibiotics, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, mebendazole, and even emergency kits and supplements, all doctor reviewed and delivered fast to your door. So while you're out doing holiday shopping, there's nothing wrong, of course, with adding a few essential medications your family might need. You can stock up, stay prepared, and keep your family healthy this season. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Let's go now to Cove Pure, I believe, covepure.com/RSBN as well. You can save upwards of $250 right now for this holiday sale. And those of you watching right now, do you like tap water? I know I don't. There are only a few people that I've ever met that do like it, but this is definitely not going to taste like tap water after you go through this filtration system. The water tastes much better because it's a lot healthier, in my opinion. It takes out 99.9% of the chemicals and just any kind of solids that can come through the tap. This is a great filter right here. So go to covepure.com/RSBN. You also can have, a lot of filters, you put it in the fridge and it's cold water. Well, this filter here, as you can see, cold, warm, or hot as well. So a great filtration system, covepure.com/RSBN. Let's go to one more sponsor as we're approaching the bottom of the hour, Venice AI. If you go to Venice AI right now, guaranteed you'll be impressed by, first of all, just the display alone. Other AI programs can now reference all of your past conversations on the various AI programs out there, but not many people feel comfortable with that. So the solution is with Venice AI. They utilize this leading open source AI model to deliver text, code, and image generation to your web browser. So there's no downloads or installations of anything. They don't spy or censor the AI, and messages are encrypted and your conversation history is stored in your browser. So AI can be extremely valuable, but we shouldn't need to give up our privacy to use it. All right, so you can check that out there, Venice AI. Just download the app or go to the website there, venice.ai/RSBN. 3 great sponsors here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Let's shift now from the White House over to the Department of Justice. They held a press conference about people illegally using SNAP benefits by turning them into cash. Check it out.
Announcing federal charges against 2 men, Antonio Bonner and Saul Elisme, for large-scale SNAP benefit trafficking, a scheme that turned a program designed to feed families into a multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise. SNAP benefits are also known as food stamps. The defendants are charged with 1 count of food stamp fraud. As alleged in the charging documents, these men abused one of the government's most critical safety net programs for their own financial gain. This is taxpayer money meant to keep people from going hungry. These defendants decided to take it for themselves. These defendants exchanged SNAP benefits for cash, which they pocketed. Bonner, a naturalized U.S. citizen from Haiti, owned the Jesuela Variety Store. Elisme, a lawful permanent resident also from Haiti, owned the Saul Mache Mixe store. These 2 businesses were co-located within a single storefront in Boston. To be certain, these were not supermarkets. They were not full-service groceries. It would be a huge stretch to even call them convenience stores. In fact, the only thing convenient about these stores was how easy it was to commit SNAP benefit fraud. To put this in perspective, the Jesuela Variety Store is less than 150 square feet in size, smaller than some bathrooms. The Saul Mache Mixe store was approximately 500 square feet in space. By contrast, a supermarket can be 20,000 to 60,000 square feet in size, have a dozen or more registers, and employ numerous employees. Both the Jesuela Variety and Saul Mache Mixe stores had 1 register, no carriages, no hand baskets, and very little food for sale. One legitimate supermarket in the same area as these stores redeems approximately $80,000 in SNAP benefits per month. Over the last 20 months, the Jesuela Variety Store was redeeming between 3 and 6 times that amount monthly, with nowhere near the space, inventory, customers, or infrastructure to support it. The Saul Mache Mixe store redeemed over $120,000 in SNAP benefits in the last 6 months. Simply put, there is no plausible way SNAP eligible food could have been purchased from these stores for this long. Yet, these 2 stores are alleged to have illicitly trafficked nearly $7 million in SNAP benefits. The fraud was shocking and glaring. Investigators found that both stores had exceptionally large and highly anomalous SNAP redemption volumes, far beyond what is remotely possible for businesses of their size, type, and location. Since March of 2024, the Jesuela Variety Store had monthly SNAP redemptions that consistently exceeded $100,000. In the previous 20 months, the monthly SNAP redemptions were between $200,000 and $300,000 a month. In one of those months, the redemptions exceeded $500,000. Investigators' suspicions of fraudulent activity were confirmed on the ground. During the course of this investigation, undercover officers used EBT cards to traffic SNAP benefits for cash at both the Josuela Variety Store and the Sal Mache Mixe Store. The defendants themselves were working the cash registers, and both exchanged SNAP benefits for cash with the undercover officers. Observations made by the undercovers showed that it was just as easy for anyone with an EBT card to walk into either store and convert hundreds of dollars in SNAP benefits into cash, all tax-free. The defendants even sold liquor in exchange for SNAP benefits, an outright violation of federal law. And perhaps most disturbing, both stores sold donated food products known as Manipacks. These are meals manufactured by the nonprofit Feed My Starving Children, which are paid for entirely by charitable donations and are intended to be shipped directly to food insecure children overseas, including children in Haiti. These products are not for sale anywhere. Yet Bonner and Elise May were selling them in their stores for nearly $10 a pack, profiting from food literally intended for starving children in disaster zones. The investigation also uncovered extensive financial manipulation.
So that was from the DOJ earlier. Can you believe it? The people were using SNAP benefits and then just trafficking them, turning them into cash. Well, the DOJ caught them there. So that was the latest from the Department of Justice as it's 5:32 Thursday, December 18th. Of course, we're tracking a number of stories here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, including one that's not the most serious right this second. Like right now, we want secure elections, and there's a number of other things that we want to see done. But coming up, of a huge celebration for our United States of America, of course, the 250th birthday. You see Freedom 250. I love, first of all, the flag there with the 250 and the 13 colonies and George Washington in 1775 there. I mean, that's awesome, right? Well, earlier, the president actually spoke about a few notable events happening in 2026. So let's go to that right now here on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
In my campaign for president, I pledged to give America the most spectacular birthday party the world has ever seen for America's 250th anniversary on July 4th next year. Already we've had big celebrations to commemorate the 250th birthdays of the Army, the Navy, and the United States Marines, but there is much, much more to come. We're going to have a good time. As we ring in 2026, Americans across the nation will see the iconic Washington Monument illuminated with festive birthday lights to honor the start of this historic anniversary year. Then from June 25th to July 10th of next year, we will host the Great American State Fair on the National Mall, featuring pavilions from all 50 states, highlighting breathtaking innovations and celebrating America's exceptional history and culture. Frankly, you'll never see anything like it, and you'll never see anything like it again. In the fall, we will host the first ever Patriot Games, an unprecedented 4-day athletic event featuring the greatest high school athletes, one young man and one young woman from each state and territory. But I promise there will be no men playing in women's sports. You're not going to see that. You'll see everything but that. As I first announced in 2020, we will build the National Garden of American Heroes featuring statues of all-time greatest Americans, and we will build a triumphal arc as we celebrate 250 years of American freedom. We are the only major city. We are the only major capital. We are the only major place without a triumphal arc, a beautiful triumphal arc, one like in Paris where they have the a beautiful arc in Paris. They call it the Arc de Triomphe. And we're going to have one in Washington, D.C. very soon. Construction will start in the very near future. And next spring, we will host a major prayer event on the National Mall to rededicate our country as one nation under God, We're not changing that. There are a lot of people would like to see it. It'll never happen. And on Flag Day, we will have a one-of-a-kind UFC event here at the White House. It'll be the greatest champion fighters in the world, all fighting that same night. The great Dana White is hosting, and it's going to be something special. But all of this is just a beginning. 2026 will be a celebration of America like no other, honoring our nation in all of its glory. To help carry out these exciting plans, we have created a new public-private partnership. It's called Freedom 250. Working with states, companies, and organizations across the country, we will renew the patriotism, pride, and pioneering spirit of America and lay the groundwork for the next 250 years of independence and freedom. This will be a time like you've never had in your lives. America 250. Thank you. I love you all.
All right, the president at the Oval Office talking about Freedom 250, of course, July 4th, 2026. This live stream broadcast brought to you by a number of sponsors, including Monetary Gold. So the Wall Street veterans are sounding the alarm. Many now say gold can climb to $7,000 an ounce before President Trump finishes his term. And it's not wild speculation. Experienced investors, economists, and portfolio managers are tracking the indicators: the soaring national debt, the unchecked government spending, and a dollar that's losing purchasing power by the day. So what's even more revealing is the behavior of central banks. They're actually trimming their exposure to U.S. Treasuries and increasing their gold reserves. They recognize the pattern. They know that paper currencies eventually fail, but gold has remained a reliable store of value throughout history. The Monetary Gold, all you have to do is contact them at 888-617-7994 or go to rsbnforthegold.com for more information. You'll get that free info kit from Monetary Gold. Let's move on to our next sponsor here as it's 5:38, Thursday, December 18th, callsheet.com/RSBN. If you've joined us just now, callsheet.com has more than 1 million users out there, and that number is growing. And you can just go to callsheet.com/RSBN or go to the QR code or download the app if you'd like to bet, trade, or check out polls on a number of topics. If it's music or weather, sports, technology, finance, politics, faith, so many things, right there at callsheet.com/RSBN. Let's go to our next sponsor here on Right Side Broadcasting Network, angelpaste.com out of Spring, Texas, of course. If you use that promo code, the RSBN promo code at checkout, you'll get the percentage off. There's a number of products there, including, of course, the Miracle Cream and a number of other products based there in Spring, Texas. So some great sponsors here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. It is 5:39 right now. We're awaiting the president there at the Oval Office. It's about 6 o'clock Eastern is when he'll sign that National Defense Authorization Act. If it's a little bit later than that, well, we know how to keep talking here at Right Side, of course, and we have a number of various interviews and various videos that we've been showing you since we've been on the air since 4 o'clock Eastern time. Those of you guys watching out there in the Pacific time zone, the Central time zone, and of course, the Mountain Time Zone, thank you so much for tuning in. All right, let's do this. We were going to go to the West Virginia soundbite with the Senator Chris Rose. I interviewed him recently, but we do have a live interview coming up at about 5:45. We're going to go all the way to the West Coast in Phoenix, Arizona. I'll tell you all about that coming up right here on Right Side after this commercial break.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed, so join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network, live here on this Thursday, December 18th. It's 5:41 Eastern Time. We'll be seeing President Trump at the Oval Office in just a bit from now. Also, we'll be heading out to Phoenix, Arizona. Of course, AmFest is happening this weekend, and it's starting out tonight, actually. A great event. I was at that back in, I think it was 2022, in December of 2022, with my girlfriend, now wife. And so it was great to see all of the great speakers there back in 2022. So we're going to head out there with John Strand. He is running for Congress in Florida, and he's out there in Phoenix. So we'll go to him live in just a minute. Also, a little bit later, we'll go to the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. He participated in a status of forces agreement, a signing ceremony with the Paraguayan foreign minister at the State Department. So that's about a 5-minute video. We'll show you that as well in just a minute. And then, of course, we can get to John Strand here shortly. And also, I recently caught up with the West Virginia Senator Chris Rose. In the meantime, let's go now to Phoenix, Arizona at the Phoenix Convention Center, where John Strand...
for bringing me on tonight. It is such an exciting privilege to be here at AmFest 2025. Of course, a very special year post Charlie Kirk's horrific assassination, and just an incredible turning point moment in our nation's history. So I'm humbled and honored to be here, and humbled to be with you, Matthew, and the RSBN family, as always.
Yeah, thank you so much again for joining us. Let's talk about first the late, great Charlie Kirk, and the fact that it's got to be a very heavy emotional thing there going on there in Phoenix.
It is. I wouldn't say it's heavy necessarily, though. I've actually so far, and it's the first day in, we're just getting started, but I've sensed a definite resolve and a buoyancy. So I think there's a lot of room for optimism, joy, and excitement. But of course, our hearts really are heavy with the unbelievable tragedy and really the disturbing violence of the radical left, and how it has assaulted not just Charlie, but all of us by extension in many ways. So it is a time to be serious, but also a time to remind ourselves that this is the day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. So that's why we're here.
Amen. Amen to that. And also to your left and to my right, at that Phoenix Convention Center is where I worked there and met the late, great Charlie Kirk and interviewed him in conservative media. And it was, we talked about Jesus as well in that actual interview. So it was really great to connect on that level with someone that's younger than me, more brilliant than I am. And
more brilliant than all of us.
Yeah, he's just he was a brilliant guy. I mean, but we're all kind of...
And a motivator and an inspiration. So, I mean, I'm surrounded by 25,000 people are expected to be here. It's just an absolute powerhouse movement. And it's because a man like Charlie, who loved Jesus and who took his faith seriously and who loved America and understood the importance of politics and engagement, he inspired a movement. These people are here growing up. The wall over here says, "We are all Charlie Kirk," and it's the truth.
That is, it's the truth, and the global impact of his life. And then also out there in Glendale, Arizona, not too far from where you are now, that memorial is so powerful as well. Let's talk about your run for Congress in Florida right now. That's something that you announced in Naples, I believe, and then we had you on the show. Let's talk about the campaign for you, as you are on the right side of history, a patriot for this country, and tell us about the campaign so far.
Well, we were just giving honor to Charlie Kirk, and he really has inspired a whole new generation, and our generation of young people who are patriots, and who understand the value of freedom and are committed to preserving it. So our campaign is called John Strand Patriot for Congress. Our mission is simple: reclaim the republic. And we're going to do that by restoring the promise that America is a covenant nation. That Charlie always started there with his faith and with the truth that God is bigger than the government. Like, that's our foundational premise, and that our rights come from government. So that's the premise of our campaign. But I encourage everyone to visit johnstrand.com, where we have just filed for the race in the 19th district in Southwest Florida, in Naples, where I live. Been there for 4 years fighting to defend liberty and morality. We've actually been doing some work at the Naples City Council level to combat the erosion of the family through the disguise of pride and an explicitly sexual enterprise that's been actually trying to wage a war over territory in Naples and Southwest Florida. So we're defending that there, but we're going to defend around the nation the sacred principles of the Constitution, faith, family, freedom, and the fortitude of individual citizens to understand that we all have a role to play, and this is our moment. So you can join us at johnstrand.com and get in the fight.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's something in that one video that you put out there for the campaign was quite awesome. It was just very authentic. People resonate with that kind of thing. And that's what we, the people, want to see, is people that we resonate with. That's why President Trump won 3 straight elections, right, John?
It is. He's authentic. He speaks to the people. He's for real. He's legit. And also, he addressed people's pain. He understands that the American people are struggling right now. They're struggling largely because for so long, we have lost touch with the actual civic process. And a lot of people that are running our government are not good people. Let's be honest about it. So they're making poor decisions that favor the wealthy elites that permanently keep themselves in power. And President Trump was a disruptor. He said, I'm going to drain the swamp. I'm going to disrupt the system because it needs to serve the American people, not the wealthy elites. Now, there's a lot of fractures and there's a lot of discussion about how to make that happen. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to electing at the primary election level. And that's what my race is the primary. Choosing the right man for the job at the primary. Who is the right man for the job? Well, I'll tell you this. I didn't sell out to save my own skin with the J6 plea deal, and I will never sell out to the American people either. You can know that because I've done it before and I'm going to do it again. So we need strong men in Washington who are willing to do what is right and what is necessary, no matter what the cost, especially if it hurts them.
Exactly. And that's what we, the people, want. We want the real deal. We want people fighting for all of us out here because not everybody can be, a congressman or congresswoman, right? But there's a lot of opinions out there. And there's the majority of the country that, you're speaking for in a way. And what's that like for you to realize that you are going to be representing a lot of people?
It's an awesome responsibility. But, Charlie and the Turning Point family, we always talk about make heaven crowded, right? So bring people into the fold, into the family of freedom and American values. So we have 3 policy pillars in our campaign, John Strand, Patriot for Congress. That is sovereignty, affordability, and accountability. So of course, affordability, the economy, those are really important issues that affect everyone. And we have to reduce the size of government, reduce taxes, reduce regulation so that Americans can actually be free to prosper and build their own lives for the meritocracy. And of course, we've lost accountability, a rogue judiciary, corruption at every level of government that's never restrained. These things need to be dealt with. But the very first policy pillar is sovereignty. What is sovereignty? It's another concept basically for independence. The Declaration of Independence? That's the Declaration of Sovereignty. It says that our rights come from God, not the government, and no one can take them away. So as a citizen, you are a sovereign individual and things belong to you. And America is a republic, which is a sovereign nation of sovereign individuals, all participating in self-governance. So we need to reclaim the republic. We need to understand we all have a role to play as citizens in our government. And I'm just doing what God's called me to do in this moment, to step to the front of the line and say, I'll keep fighting. We need leaders who fight for us, not against us. And that's what this campaign is about. So join the fight at johnstrand.com. We're very excited.
And then also, John, as you're out there meeting people, are there any speakers that you're looking forward to hearing? And is this your first time at AmFest there in Arizona?
No, I've been to AmFest many times. I actually had the incredible honor of having Charlie on my show, Frontline Flash, a few years ago, right here at AmFest, which was incredible. And the support from the Turning Point family for me and for frontline doctors has been fantastic over the years. I am actually very excited to see Erica Kirk opened the event today. She is just an unbelievable warrior for Christ and for America, not to mention just an indescribable level of pain and tragedy that she has had to endure. And I feel like she's really just becoming just a sister and mother figure to Americans to really lead the way for this generation. You know, Matthew, something I've been telling people, and I truly believe this about this coming cycle, 2026 is our generation's 1776. We had to get President Trump in 24. That was a monumental battle. He almost got his head blown off. So God preserved him and put him back in the White House. That was step one, but that's only the first step. President Trump's only one man, and our system is designed to decentralize power. He needs a strong, courageous Congress to get the agenda passed that the people elected him to do. This is our last chance to get that done with President Trump and the momentum that the MAGA movement has built over these years. 2026 is that moment. JohnStrand.com is how you can get in that fight and elect a true patriot to Congress. And I hope not only to win this race, but to inspire other patriots to step to the line, run for public office, and make the hard, tough decisions necessary to put the American people back in charge.
The midterms in 2026, 320 days from today. It sounds like a long time, but we know years fly, especially as you get a bit older. The years just really fly. John Strand, running for Congress in Florida. Thanks so much for joining us from Phoenix, Arizona at AmFest 2025.
Thank you so much, Matthew. God bless you and the RSBN family, and God bless these great United States of America.
Amen, John. Thank you, sir.
Cheers.
Always good to see John Strand, and of course there in Phoenix, Arizona, live as we are, thinking about AmFest as well. We have a number of feeds that are happening today. Of course, you can watch that feed, I believe, after this broadcast and through the weekend. And then, but tomorrow night, of course, in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, our RSBN host, Robert McNeely, will be there live as he will, I believe, speak to a number of patriots prior to the event. And then the president will be speaking at about 9 Eastern tomorrow. We know that we'll be live at this point, 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night. I'll be here in the studio. I was just in Pennsylvania in Mount Pocono, where it was 6 degrees for that low in Pennsylvania for that speech there. I'm glad it was inside, though. We were outside, if you remember, for a couple hours speaking with patriots. In the meantime, it's 5:53 Thursday, December 18th. We're going to go to the White House here as soon as we see that live feed. It's scheduled for 6 o'clock. Let's take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back here on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network, looking at a video we're going to play in just a minute from the Department of State. That was with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He participated in a status of forces agreement. You're going to hear more about that in just a minute. Before we go to that video and before we go to our interview with the West Virginia Senator Chris Rose, let's go to a few of our sponsors here on Right Side Broadcasting Network, including All Family Pharmacy. As you know, here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and as you've heard in this broadcast, we always try to point you toward those companies that actually support your freedom and give you real choices. And that's exactly why we trust All Family Pharmacy. They're not your traditional pharmacy pushing flu shots. They're actually just simply different. They give you options. They encourage you to take charge of your health, stay prepared, and have the right medications on hand before sickness hits. And of course, during the holidays, that's important. It's the travel, the cold weather, depending on what part of the country you're in, of course, the family gatherings. This is when everyone can, unfortunately, get sick. So why wait until someone is miserable and you're scrambling for appointments or pharmacy lines? All Family Pharmacy, they have everything your family might need. The antivirals, the antibiotics, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, mebendazole, even emergency kits and supplements. All doctor reviewed and delivered straight to your door. So while you're out there doing some of that Christmas shopping, there's nothing wrong, of course, with adding a few essential medications your family might need. You could stock up, stay prepared, and keep your family healthy this season. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Let's also go to our next sponsor here on Right Side Broadcasting Network, as it's 3 minutes to the top of the hour. mypillow.com/RSBN. The great Mike Lindell, of course, throwing his hat in the ring to run for governor of Minnesota. A lot of patriots in Minnesota. We're hoping, praying, and believing for a great outcome for that election there in that state. But outside of that, of course, if you'd like to purchase a number of great products, you can. mypillow.com/RSBN. Use that RSBN promo code if you're looking for pillows or sheets or blankets or towels or slides, slippers, all sorts of stuff. How about My Coffee? A lot there for you. mypillow.com/RSBN. All right, let's also go to the fact of this, that you can donate at Right Side Broadcasting Network by texting RSBN to 801-801 or RSBN Network, rsbnetwork.com/donate. As we grow and expand here at the network and, continue to bring you coverage, obviously, it costs a few bucks to do that. So if you have a couple extra bucks, great. If you don't, no worries. But thank you so much for streaming in. And to those that donate monthly, thank you again for doing so as we're approaching the top of the hour. It's Thursday, December 18th. Let's do this. Let's go to a video that we saw at the State Department earlier with Secretary of State Marco Rubio participating in a status of forces agreement. It was a signing ceremony with the Paraguayan foreign minister. So we're going to go to that video. After that video, we'll await the live picture and live video from the White House there, as the president will be signing the National Defense Authorization Act. If we don't see the live feed at that point, we do have an interview with the West Virginia Senator Chris Rose, and we'll stand by until we see that live feed from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So let's go now to the Department of State from a video from earlier today.
Thank you all for being here today. Thank you to the Foreign Minister of Paraguay for joining us here today. This is a historic step in our partnership between our two countries. This status of forces agreement, it demonstrates our shared commitment to security, regional security. The biggest threat in the Western Hemisphere that we face is the threat of transnational criminals networks, transnational terrorist networks. We've said this, if you see it in the document we put out just about 10 days ago in our national security strategy. If you look at the fundamental problem in the hemisphere, the most serious problem we have in our hemisphere is these transnational terrorist organizations who are not ideologically terrorists in many cases, but are financial and economic in their basis, but nonetheless are operating as terrorist organizations and threaten the stability and security of the region. It's a problem we see in multiple places, and we need strong partners to confront them. We need strong partners in the region that understand that that's the biggest threat in our hemisphere and are committed to working with us to confronting it. And we can do it in a way that also respects the sovereignty of our partner nations. So what we signed today is a status of forces agreement that allows us to formalize a partnership that already exists and that we want to build upon, that allows us to train together, that allows us to advance the transfer of equipment that they need for their own security, that allow us to share intelligence in real time, that allow us to operate together when necessary, and in the case of any contingencies. By the way, this includes having an opportunity to very quickly partner on humanitarian responses, be it to natural disasters or anything else. So we're excited for the ability to do this today. Paraguay is among our strongest allies in the world, but certainly in the region, and we want to continue to find concrete ways to work together and operate together. And by the way, this extends beyond the security realm. This is not just a security matter. This agreement is about security, but we also want to extend and expand our cooperation on the economic front. There's a lot of good things, positive things happening in Paraguay, a tremendous potential to make Paraguay a richer country and do so in partnership with American economic interests in a way that further binds our two countries together and makes us stronger. So we're very grateful for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, dear Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Your commitment with our relation is quite important. 160 years of diplomatic relation between Paraguay and the United States is going on the good way. This is the opportunity to express clearly our commitment to fight against the terrorist organization, the international or transnational crime organizations. We are very committed to the freedom, to the human rights, to the rule of law, and obviously with the freedom. The freedom is one of the most important steps in which we are working, because fighting against the terrorism is allowing our people to have a better life on freedom. This is an agreement that it will strengthen our relation not only on security, as you well expressed, dear Marco. It's going to allow us to work very close to building capacities, our security forces, and will allow us as well to be closer on our relation on our strategy on development of security.
Secretario, Nicolás Maduro dice que está listo para romperle los dientes a Estados Unidos. ¿Usted qué opina?
All right, so that was the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, with a Paraguayan foreign minister there, foreign defense minister from earlier today. So if you're just joining us now, you missed about 2 hours of coverage that we've been covering this live as we continue to await the president there at the White House. This will be a live feed. As soon as we see it, we'll go there. He'll be signing that National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA. We'll hear all about it coming up here in just a minute at the White House. In the meantime, of course, this weekend starts AmFest out there in 2025, AmFest. So in Phoenix, Arizona, a great Phoenix Convention Center. I went to AmFest back in 2022. It is quite the event. out there in Phoenix. All right, so let's do this. We have one more interview for you as we await the president here. This is the West Virginia Senator Chris Rose, who joined us on the phone actually when I was live in Mount Pocono, Pennsylvania, just this past Tuesday. I believe it's this past Tuesday. Man, they're all the different events, they come together with the amount of coverage we do. But yeah, maybe it was last week. Anyway, so we interviewed him over the phone. This time, we got to sit down with him here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. So this is the senator from West Virginia, Chris Rose. Take a look. And joining us now on Right Side Broadcasting Network is West Virginia Senator Chris Rose. Sir, thank you so much for joining us once again.
No, thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
Definitely. Do you have any update on National Guardsman Andrew Wolf? I know we spoke the other day about that, but what's the latest that you know?
So the latest is National Guardsman Andrew Wolf. Positive updates coming from his family. Obviously continuing asking for the prayers to continue to see this miracle develop, but he's getting stronger by the day, starting to look more and more like himself each and every day, but still not out of the woods yet. Will be in acute care for approximately 2 to 3 more weeks, but seems to be getting stronger, seems to be healing. I mean, it's obviously a long road ahead, but he seems to have the will and the fight, and obviously we're watching God perform a miracle right before our eyes. But obviously continue to throw up the prayers to keep his family in your prayers as well as they continue to go through this. But what an amazing family, what a strong, young, brave hero, and a tremendous family. And this is, this should have never happened, but to watch this family's determination and this young man's grit is something to truly behold.
It is definitely, and always good to pray and ask God for a miracle, especially in these kind of situations. Also, there's so many topics to talk about out there outside of that tragic situation there, but hopefully, he'll come through. When it comes to God, family, country, and freedom, we talked about this the other day in Pennsylvania, but it's something to always remind people about, like, why do we do what we do, right? I know that I do that for God, family, country, and I know you do the same thing. So can you talk about why you do that?
Absolutely. So, faith, family, and freedom, loving our God, supporting our families, defending our country. It's everything, it's at the very foundation of the existence of this country. It's why it's prospered for 250 years. God set aside this special land, Reagan, President Reagan used to talk about it a lot, that God set this place away to the side in a special type of way as the last bastion of freedom, hope, and Christianity. And he's absolutely right. President Trump has been revitalizing that. We call it making America great again. And I fully support his efforts to do so. And we definitely need to get more people elected in our party that is willing to help him with that agenda. But it's in the very fabric of each and every community. We were founded upon the biblical Christian values in each and every town. It's why we have been the greatest nation in the history of the world. Our values, even for those that come to this nation that may be of another faith, our society was built upon the Ten Commandments. Our society and law and order in this country was built upon Judeo-Christian principles, and that's why we have the greatest nation on earth. And there have been those for decades that's been trying to undo that and attack that. But that's why we do what we do. That's why I ran for office, was to put a stop to that and restore our great country. And a huge part of that is restoring our faith in God.
Yeah, amen. I mean, that's the first priority out of all the priorities. There's so many things that we need to do. But to be able to know that, God will do his part, but we also have to do our part. So let's talk about that a little bit as well, about the midterms coming up. Of course, a huge election for our country. We have to pray, but we also have to get out the vote. What other things do you think will really rally the base and rally the majority of the people that voted for President Trump for 3 straight elections?
Well, so Trump campaigns on it a lot. Promises made, promises kept. You've never seen a more secure border than right now. You see the border crossings that are all-time lows. You see deportations of these violent criminals is through the roof. He's taken on the drug cartels. He's stopping all this stuff from coming into our country, and he's delivering on that. And I think you're going to see a lot of big economic wins to start to happen. We have the tariffs going on right now with China and a lot of these other bad actors that have been ripping us off for decades, these horrible trade deals that were one-sided, and they led to America's deficits. You're starting to see manufacturing come back to the United States, and West Virginia is starting to land some of that, as many other states are as well, as what the announcement when we were talking the other day in Pocono. But we're starting to see those jobs to come back to this country. We're starting to see wages grow again in this country. You're not seeing the inflation from Biden in his terrible economic policies, but the stagflation on wages. You're starting to see inflation be under control, but wages going up. And that's exactly what the American people voted for. They wanted America to be put first. They wanted good paying jobs, and they wanted their country secure. And we're delivering on that all up and down the ballot. But we definitely need to give President Trump some more help to even take this even further, because he's already the greatest president of our lifetime and will probably go down as one of the greatest ones in American history. I have no doubt about that at all. But we absolutely have to take these midterms seriously, because the other side is going to be motivated. When they lose an election, they come out the next one swinging, and we have to be prepared for that. And President Trump won't be directly on the ballot, but he's already committed to coming out swinging in the midterms to try to help us deliver a big MAGA red wave.
And then on top of that, speaking of delivering, can you talk about some of the legislation, or whether you sponsored or co-sponsored any legislation over 2025 that you're really proud of, that the people of West Virginia, your constituents, are saying, thank God for Senator Chris Rose?
Oh, so absolutely. So one of the very first things that I campaigned on, and I took a state Senate primary that was a little bit under national spotlight, took on a two-term incumbent, was outspent 25-1, and was able to swing the district 60 points in a primary in just 4 years amount of time. And we pulled off one of the biggest financial upsets in political history. But we actually closed all loopholes for the transgender drugs for kids. You've heard President Trump talk about the attack on our children with that woke agenda. Well, we put a stop to that here in West Virginia. There is absolutely zero loopholes. We completely shut down. There will be no transgender drugs or surgeries for children in West Virginia. I was proud to be the lead sponsor on that in my very first year as a freshman. It's a heavy lift, but we were proud to deliver it. But we expanded Second Amendment rights here to where even in times of emergency, they won't be infringed upon. Also introduced a constitutional amendment to do away with personal property taxes here in West Virginia. That one didn't get across the finish line, but I'm still very proud to champion that. But you know what? It didn't pass this past session, but this upcoming session, our governor's even touting that. So, sometimes legislation takes more than 1 year to get through. Now we got our governor on board with that same idea. We have our Senate president and our House of Delegates Speaker pushing it as well. So, we're having progress made on that. And we're also pushing to eliminate the state income tax. We introduced a bill last year, but now we have people wanting to do a special session to make the triggers even more aggressive. So we're definitely winning. We're actually setting the agenda here in West Virginia, and I'm very proud to do so and very thankful for the support. I've only been in there 1 year, but we're seeing a big difference. West Virginia is a rising power in this country. We're America's best kept secret, and soon the whole country will see it.
And then on top of that, every county voted for President Trump in 2024 in West Virginia and Oklahoma, the only two states that happened. It looks like the Mountaineer State is a place that, people in that part of the country might think about moving to, right?
Oh, absolutely. And we're definitely called Trump country. We voted, all 55 counties voted for Trump in 2020 and 2024. So this is definitely Trump country. This is MAGA country. And we're starting to see more people moving into West Virginia than moving out. You didn't see that under the 90 straight years the Democrats ran this state. But under the 10 years of Republicans, especially in the last few years under the MAGA Republicans, you're starting to see a net inflow as opposed to people leaving. And that's due to the America First policies and the America First movement that President Trump kicked off. And we're happy to, enforce, to implement it here on the state level. It's been truly wonderful for West Virginia. And we definitely would take anyone who, is conservative, America First. There's some counties in Virginia and Maryland that are disgruntled with how their states are going. And there's even some talks of some measures actually going into place for them to vote to move across state lines, and we'll see how that develops. But there's also a lot of them talk about moving here altogether, and we welcome anyone that's seeking freedom, anyone who's God, family, freedom. We definitely welcome those people in West Virginia with open arms.
That's awesome. Last question, a very serious question: Thundering Herd or the Mountaineers? Have you ever had to pick when it comes to your favorite football team there in college football?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, WVU is my district, so let's go Mountaineers. Always have to pull for the home team. I do pull for Marshall, the Thundering Herd, when they're not playing WVU. But at the end of the day, the good old blue and gold, you just can't get any better than that. And I'm telling you right now, Coach Rich Rodriguez is back. We just had a huge recruiting class, and I'm telling you right now, WVU will be a force to be reckoned with next year.
And sir, if my family and I are passing through West Virginia or around during fall, I would love to get to a game at West Virginia.
Absolutely. Hit me up. We can set you up, man, and you'd have a great time.
That'd be awesome. Thank you, sir. And West Virginia Senator Chris Rose, thank you again for joining us live right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
As always, it's my honor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that interview from earlier in the week, and good evening once again. Welcome back into Right Side Broadcasting Network Studio B. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Thanks again for live streaming in with us. And a number of you have been with us since 4 o'clock Eastern time. It's now 2 hours and 15 minutes since then. Of course, we've had a lot of interviews, a lot of video content that we've shared with you. Now is the waiting game, a little bit of a waiting game. We'll see when that live feed will happen there at the Oval Office, as the president will be signing the NDAA right there, as you see on the bottom of your screen. So tomorrow in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, we'll have a crew, of course, there for that coverage. Robert McNeely will be boots on the ground there as we speak to some of the patriots in the area of North Carolina. And then, of course, we'll hear from the president. Now, our coverage is slated to start at 6 Eastern tomorrow night. And then at 9 o'clock Eastern is when President Trump is slated to take the stage. So as soon as we see that, we will obviously be throwing to that at that point. So that will be his second speech outside the Beltway when it comes to, mixing with all of us out there. I remember we were in Mount Pocono just last week in Pennsylvania for that speech, and now, of course, in North Carolina, something that you can count on here on Right Side Broadcasting Network, conservative media, live events, of course, covering the President of the United States, 45 and 47. As it's now 6/16, Thursday, December 18th. All right, so awaiting that live feed there at the White House. We're going to check out some of the news headlines. We'll be right back here on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. Thanks so much for sticking with us as we wait for that live feed there at the Oval Office. In the meantime, pretty recently I spoke with the attorney of Tina Peters. His name is Peter Tickton. Of course, he's been in the news a lot as he's representing Tina. A lot of us out there, the majority of the country, saying she should be released from jail. She's has a 9-year prison sentence. And if you looked at the story and looked at the case, as you guys may have seen, being a federal witness in an election, we should be able to get her out of jail there. And also, if you're looking to get a deep dive on all of that, of course, there's a lot of information out there in conservative media about it. But let's go to Peter Tickton, the lawyer. I was asking him, hey, so now that President Trump signed that pardon for her, well, if the state's going to hold on to her, some people are saying, well, the marshals will go in and get her out. Let's see what Peter Tickton has to say about that.
It could happen, but I think before that would happen, I think that she would probably be declared also a material witness in the investigations that are ongoing. What's of great importance that it needs to get out there, people need to understand that when President Trump says that there's a truckload of evidence that can prove that the machines basically have corrupted the election and the election in 2020 was stolen, it's so important because the election of 2020 wasn't stolen. The nation was stolen. For 4 years, we were under the governance of a government that was put in by foreign actors. In other words, we lost the war without having a shot fired. So, we got our country back. We got our president in place. Now it's time to consolidate that, and there's no way to do that without the world knowing that this is what happened, that we're facing a force of evil that basically took over the United States. We got it back, we're taking it back, but it's not going to stay in our hands unless we have free elections in 2026. And the only way to have free elections in 2026 is that there's going to need to be an order from the president that declares an election emergency. And that's not going to happen unless the people understand that there really is an election emergency. And I being one of the people involved in looking at the evidence itself, I can tell you there are these computers that cannot be used. It has to be paper ballots. It has to be, and the only reason it has to be is that's the only way that we're going to be able to have a fair election. And then let's just see what happens in terms of the numbers of people in the House of Representatives. Then let's see what happens to the numbers of people in the Senate. And we're going to see that common sense is going to prevail.
And I think at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for, is simply common sense. And I think common sense, truth, all the things, that's what the majority of all of us are supporting, right? You just want the things that represent God, family, country, and the United States Constitution, which are all within the same framework there, with the constitutional rights. Let's look at a story that happened in North Carolina earlier today. A tragedy there, reading from the Daily Mail here, but this is specifically reporting from a number of sources. NASCAR icon Greg Biffle and his wife and 2 children have died in a fiery North Carolina plane crash. That was according to a close friend. So we could take a look. All the way on the left there is Greg Biffle. He was receiving an award from the North Carolina Freedom and Faith, or the Faith and Freedom Coalition. We had one of the representatives of that coalition join us live earlier to talk about Greg. He apparently was this awesome humanitarian as well. I had to learn a little bit about him today, but he was helping out with the Hurricane Helene victims in North Carolina and has always done all of these type of things for people. Again, he was a former NASCAR driver, and he and his wife and 2 children, they died in that plane crash, a small plane crash in North Carolina earlier today. So definitely our hearts and prayers and thoughts, all of them, just thinking about this situation. When it comes to a whole entire family, obviously a tragedy, but maybe it makes you just want to, hold on to your family a little tighter. You know what I mean? Just you think about life and how quick it can be sometimes, and it's just something that you just never know. So that is something that we saw with Greg Biffle, once again, former NASCAR driver, all the way on the left of your screen there, standing near a number of people that were awarded from the North Carolina Faith and Freedom Coalition. All right, it is 6:23 Thursday, December 18th. Awaiting President Trump there. The president will be signing in a National Defense Authorization Act. We'll hear more about those specifics once we see the president there. And he may take questions like he did earlier today at an executive order signing. So we'll see how that rolls as it's Thursday, December 18th. We're only, how many days away from Christmas? 6, 7? So yeah, it's right around the corner, of course. And it's 6:24 Eastern time. So let's go to the DOJ press conference about SNAP benefits. Apparently, some of these people are trafficking SNAP benefits where you're able to turn them into cash. Well, that's a huge no-no. And here's the Department of Justice talking about it. Take a look.
We are announcing federal charges against 2 men, Antonio Bonner and Saul Elisme, for large-scale SNAP benefit trafficking, a scheme that turned a program designed to feed families into a multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise. SNAP benefits are also known as food stamps. The defendants are charged with 1 count of food stamp fraud. As alleged in the charging documents, these men abused one of the government's most critical safety net programs for their own financial gain. This is taxpayer money meant to keep people from going hungry. These defendants decided to take it for themselves. These defendants exchanged SNAP benefits for cash, which they pocketed. Bonner, a naturalized U.S. citizen from Haiti, owned the Josuela Variety Store. Elise May, a lawful permanent resident also from Haiti, owned the Saul Mache Mixe store. These two businesses were co-located within a single storefront in Boston. To be certain, these were not supermarkets. They were not full-service groceries. It would be a huge stretch to even call them convenience stores. In fact, the only thing convenient about these stores was how easy it was to commit SNAP benefit fraud. To put this in perspective, the Josuela Variety Store is less than 150 square feet in size, smaller than some bathrooms. The Saul Mache Mixe store was approximately 500 square feet in space. By contrast, a supermarket can be 20,000 to 60,000 square feet in size, have a dozen or more registers, and employ numerous employees. Both the Josuela Variety and Saul Mache Mixe stores had one register, no carriages, no hand baskets, and very little food for sale. One legitimate supermarket in the same area as these stores redeems approximately $80,000 in SNAP benefits per month. Over the last 20 months, the Josuela Variety Store was redeeming between 3 and 6 times that amount monthly, with nowhere near the space, inventory, customers, or infrastructure to support it. The Saul Mache Mixe store redeemed over $120,000 in SNAP benefits in the last 6 months. Simply put, there is no plausible way SNAP eligible food could have been purchased from these stores for this long. Yet, these two stores are alleged to have illicitly trafficked nearly $7 million in SNAP benefits. The fraud was shocking and glaring. Investigators found that both stores had exceptionally large and highly anomalous SNAP redemption volumes, far beyond what is remotely possible for businesses of their size, type, and location. Since March of 2024, the Josuela Variety Store had monthly SNAP redemptions that consistently exceeded $100,000. In the previous 20 months, the monthly SNAP redemptions were between $200,000 and $300,000 a month. In one of those months, the redemptions exceeded $500,000. Investigators' suspicions of fraudulent activity were confirmed on the ground. During the course of this investigation, undercover officers used EBT cards to traffic SNAP benefits for cash at both the Josuela Variety Store and the Saul Mache Mixe store. The defendants themselves were working the cash registers, and both exchanged SNAP benefits for cash with the undercover officers. Observations made by the undercovers showed that it was just as easy for anyone with an EBT card to walk into either store and convert hundreds of dollars in SNAP benefits into cash, all tax-free. The defendants even sold liquor in exchange for SNAP benefits, an outright violation of federal law. And perhaps most disturbing, both stores sold donated food products known as Manipacks. These are meals manufactured by the nonprofit Feed My Starving Children, which are paid for entirely by charitable donations and are intended to be shipped directly to food insecure children overseas, including children in Haiti. These products are not for sale anywhere. Yet Bonner and Elise May were selling them in their stores for nearly $10 a pack, profiting from food literally intended for starving children in disaster zones. The investigation also uncovered extensive financial manipulation.
All right, so that press conference from the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. earlier today. We've covered a lot today. The DOJ, the State Department, the White House had live interviews, a lot going on as we await President Trump there to sign the NDAA. So as soon as we see that live feed, we'll take you there. In the meantime, speaking of the president, speaking of the White House, pretty recently he spoke about this Freedom 250. It's all about our 250th birthday, which of course is July 4th of 2026. Huge party, of course, for the United States of America. There's going to be a lot going on. The president kind of details that for you. We also have a picture of the graphic for it. So Freedom 250, beautiful photo, in my opinion. I mean, the flag. If you follow me on Truth Social or X, I'm kind of a simple guy when it comes to a lot of this stuff, because at the end of the day, guys, it's all about common sense, in my opinion. So, hey, if you love the flag, just post the flag, right? But this one here has the 250 in the middle for the 13 colonies, of course. It says Freedom 250. You see George Washington back in 1775, of course. So anyway, so President Trump talking about all the things that we're going to see in 2026 when it comes to our celebration of our country being 250 years young. Let's return to the White House and take a look.
In my campaign for president, I pledged to give America the most spectacular birthday party the world has ever seen for America's 250th anniversary on July 4th next year. Already we've had big celebrations to commemorate the 250th birthdays of the Army, the Navy, and the United States Marines, but there is much, much more to come. We're going to have a good time. As we ring in 2026, Americans across the nation will see the iconic Washington Monument illuminated with festive birthday lights to honor the start of this historic anniversary year. Then from June 25th to July 10th of next year, we will host the Great American State Fair on the National Mall, featuring pavilions from all 50 states, highlighting breathtaking innovations and celebrating America's exceptional history and culture. Frankly, you'll never see anything like it, and you'll never see anything like it again. In the fall, we will host the first ever Patriot Games, an unprecedented 4-day athletic event featuring the greatest high school athletes, one young man and one young woman from each state and territory. But I promise there will be no men playing in women's sports. You're not going to see that. You'll see everything but that. As I first announced in 2020, we will build the National Garden of American Heroes, featuring statues of all-time greatest Americans. Construction will start in the very near future. And next spring, we will host a major prayer event on the National Mall to rededicate our country as one nation under God. We're not changing that. There are a lot of people who would like to see it. It'll never happen. And on Flag Day, we will have a one-of-a-kind UFC event here at the White House. It'll be the greatest champion fighters in the world, all fighting that same night. The great Dana White is hosting, and it's going to be something special. But all of this is just the beginning. 2026 will be a celebration of America like no other, honoring our nation in all of its glory. To help carry out these exciting plans, we have created a new public-private partnership. It's called Freedom 250. Working with states, companies, and organizations across the country, we will renew the patriotism, pride, and pioneering spirit of America and lay the groundwork for the next 250 years of independence and freedom. This will be a time like you've never had in your lives. America 250. Thank you. I love you all.
All right, so the president, of course, talking about Freedom 250, looking like we may get Silk on the line as well, of course, of Diamond and Silk. So we'll see if she'll join us as we are awaiting President Trump. Of course, always good to speak with her. If she, it's one of those random things. They randomly texted her. I said, hey, you want to join us as we await the president? So we'll see if that happens, but always fun to talk to her. In the meantime, if you've just joined us right now, we've been on the air since 4 o'clock Eastern. Of course, we spoke a lot about our great sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and some live interviews and a lot of great content, of course, as we're continuing to await the president there for the National Defense Authorization Act. Also, tomorrow, Rocky Mount, North Carolina. Earlier in the week, I was saying Rocky Point, North Carolina, and I didn't know that there's a Rocky Point and a Rocky Mount, so I was incorrect, but that's all right. Sometimes sometimes you're wrong. It's okay. Anyway, so 6:35 Eastern Time, Thursday, December 18th. I think Silk says sure, so that means crew, we're about to have Silk join us. Always fun to talk with her, especially as we're getting ready for the holidays, the Christmas time and Christmas season, but also to hear her take on what's going on out there throughout the country. Of course, we interviewed the West Virginia Senator Chris Rose earlier, spoke a lot about the various things that we see across the United States, and we're really believing for something called securing our elections, right? That's something that, of course, we need to see happen here in the nation. Voter reform. That's the 19th promise out of the 20 core promises to the American people from President Trump and the RNC back in 2024, as that campaign season was obviously already heated up and approaching the fall months, of course, November of 2024. And number 19 out of 20 is all about securing our elections, voter ID and proof of citizenship, same-day voting, paper ballots, all the things. That's what we need to have here in this country. And joining us right now, thank you, Silk, for joining us. It's Thursday, December 18th, 6:36 Eastern, as we wait the president as he's going to sign this NDAA. So, Silk, talk to us about what you've been working on your show and how's everything going your way?
Well, everything is going amazing, phenomenal. I cannot and I will not complain. It's a lot that's going on. I will say that. It's a lot to talk about, a lot of subject matter here. But my main thing is when it comes down to these radical Islamic terrorists, these illegal aliens, and these Muslims who seeks to destroy America, especially with a lot of these individuals being infiltrated in our political arena. And that's been my main focus, because I believe that that's really truly the detriment of America if we allow these individuals to set up camp, to set up their country, inside of our communities, and bring their ideology inside of our communities and have our communities looking like a third world country. So I've been speaking out about a lot of that. And I think that it's time for these individuals to go back to their own country so that they can worship whomever they choose to, call out whoever they want to, and wear whatever they want to. It is not fair to us as American citizens that we are supposed to have access to the American dream, and these people come over here and they take our dream from us. They change our constitutional right. They take and with the Constitution, our Constitution, to say or make it appear like we don't have any constitutional right, and they try to control us. So that's what I've been really speaking out about, Matt.
Yeah, exactly. And I like your show, and I like you, Silk, of course, because I like that you're always telling it like it is. You don't mince words. And it's entertaining, to be honest. I remember seeing you at a rally, I think it was in North Carolina. And let's speak about North Carolina. So tomorrow, are you going to be able to go to that event there? But also, what's it like to see President Trump, touring through Rocky Mount?
Well, unfortunately, I will not be able to be there. I'm actually on what I call Christmas workcation instead of Christmas vacation. But it's good to see President Trump out touring. It's sad that he has to be out touring, because what I'm looking at is that our media is not telling the people what President Trump is actually doing. So he has to basically go through the back door to let people know what's going on, how he's having all of these great successes. But I'm grateful that he's able to travel so that the people can really get the word and understand what's going on. Because if we had to depend on a lot of this, the corporate media, we would be doomed. Yeah. I'm grateful for underground media like yourself, RSBN, myself, and so forth, where we can get the word out. And I'm grateful for President Trump for doing just that.
Exactly. So we're going to see the president tomorrow in North Carolina. We'll have that live coverage here. And then on top of that, we the people, we also reflect what people are saying out there. It's always good to do that. And we've talked a lot about, any kind of prosecutions for people that need to be held accountable. We've talked about securing our elections and holding on to our freedoms in this nation. But I like what you led with, Silk. You talked about basically that, keeping our freedoms here and all of the things that are happening. We saw what happened in Australia. We saw what happened in Rhode Island when it comes to Brown University. We saw what happened across the country. And a lot of times what we're seeing here, especially obviously in Australia, is people that say they believe in a certain faith, but then if you're radicalized, you're taking people's lives. It just doesn't mix with America, does it?
Exactly. Do not mix with America, with our Western way of living. I feel like, Matt, that we are really truly under a national security threat. And I think that President Trump needs to do whatever it needs to do to send in the military. I don't care if it's martial law, whatever you want to call it, whatever it takes to get these people out. Look, I don't care who you choose to worship, when you choose to worship them, and why you choose to worship them. I can care less. But I care when you try to impose your ideology on me and push it down my throat. And then say, if I don't convert, then you're ready to kill me off. You know, like I'm not a human being. So for those individuals that believe in that ideology, once again, they need to be in their foreign country so that they can practice it over there. Listen, Matt, I can't go to a foreign country and practice my religion in that foreign country. I can't go build no church there in their foreign country. I can't go there and run for the mayorship or the mayor office or governor or be part of their political arena there in their foreign countries. So how is it where they can come here to our country and practice that over here, and we supposed to sit back and accept that as American citizens? No, I have a very, very big problem with that.
And a lot of people are saying the same thing. That's why we resonate with people like you, Silk, and people resonate with us here at Right Side and other conservative media outlets because, you know, we just tell it like it is. And a lot of times, as we await the president, so Silk, as soon as we see the president's feed, we're going to go there live to the White House. Thanks again for speaking with me here. But, you know, a lot of times we just see all of the mainstream media covering for the false narrative and the lies, but they're not used to, I think the people are still getting used to people like yourself, myself, and others telling it like it is on the networks and not mincing words, not holding back from what is true because what do we, you know what I mean? We're on the right side of history. We believe in God, family, country, freedom.
Yeah, but if we don't use our God-given talents, which is, and our God-given gift, what God gave us is our mouth, our brain. If we don't use our power, which is our voice, we won't have a voice. We will be voiceless. I was born on this soil. I was born here in America. And it really, truly pains me to see foreigners from another country call themselves in leadership and saying that they represent me when they don't know me. How are you going to represent this country when you don't know this country? You was just here for 5-10 years, you know? So I'm right there with you, Matt. And truth is something that we got to continue to tell. That's why we have very good viewership. And the corporate media, the left-wing media, they just going straight up down the tube because people are paying attention. But unfortunately, we have individuals that, like I say, they're in Congress. They call themselves leaders. They're writing different pieces of legislation to really protect their nastiness, their demonicism. And they want to force that down Americans. And I really, truly, totally disagree with that. You know, I was looking at how Marjorie Taylor Greene, you know, one of the bills that she's been pushing past where, you know, the children not to be given all of these chemicals and mutilation of children and so forth. And I saw how this guy that is up there in a dress came out. He's in Congress. Oh God, what is his name? But he's supposed to be some type of trans, but I call it mental illness, but comes out and talk about that. And I've been telling my audience, y'all got to be cautious about this thing, because with that dude being there in Congress dressed up like a woman, calling himself a woman, walking around in a dress like a woman, they're in Congress. He can push legislation to take and cover for his own demonicism and push that down our throat. And I don't think that needs to be in Congress. That don't represent America. It don't represent Americans. It only represents a few 5 or 6 or however many mental ill men who don't know who they are. And I don't think that should be in front of the people's eyes. I don't think it should be part of leadership. So my main thing here is individuals that either was not born on this soil, just came here 5 or 10 years ago, should not be calling themselves representing America when they wasn't even born in America.
Exactly. And finally, Silk, I want to get your reaction to just the American people that are awake and on the right side of history, that love the Constitution and love freedom and all that. Isn't it awesome, Silk, that we have Americans, to your point, that understand what's happening out there? They're not falling for the mainstream media thing. Isn't it awesome to have a bunch of countrymen and countrywomen out there that are our patriot friends? You know what I mean? Indirectly, it's our family out there, Silk. It's our family across this country. Isn't that awesome, Silk?
That is amazing. It truly, truly is amazing. It's truly amazing to see people really awakening. It's about like a flower that, the flower leaves are closed, but then as the sun hits it and it starts to blossom and open up, or you put water on it, it starts to blossom and open up. People are really realizing what's been happening to our country for decades upon decades upon decades. That's the reason why our country have been stagnated, because we have individuals that's in government positions stealing our wealth. They're stealing our wealth. I'm looking at Tampon Timmy down there in Minnesota and all of the different corruption that's going on there that he's basically overseeing, and I feel is an accessory to it. Now, why is he still in government? Why he's still in the government mansion if we already got the receipts of all of this thievery, okay? Because let me tell you something, Matt. If I was over some type of corporation and they caught me stealing money, the first thing they're going to do is fire me. The next thing they're going to do is lock me right on up. So why hadn't Tim Walsh been locked up? And then what other blue states are stealing from America and Americans? So it's great to see Americans finally waking up. That's why I love President Trump, because he called it right on out. Yep, they stole this amount of money went there, so that people will really truly know what happens. And I want to just tell the audience, be sure to educate yourself. Don't get your news from just one source. Get it across the spectrum, especially underground media, so that you can understand and know what's truly going on. Because if you're just staying stuck there on that communist news network, that's all you gonna get. A bunch of lies, somebody that's going to bamboozle you and hoodwink you.
Come on now. That's the truth right there, Silk. That's the truth. That's what they want to do all the time. And to your point about Tim Walsh, if you watch some of Nick Shirley's footage up there, he's approaching people and asking them just, respectfully, doing due diligence as a journalist to talk about the points that you were just making about Tim Walsh. Let's talk about the real governor of Minnesota, Mike Lindell, huh, Silk?
That's right, baby. That's right. He would make the best governor ever right there in Minnesota. With his business being there, him living there. I believe he was even born there, right there in Minnesota. But my deal is he's been there. He's an entrepreneur. He's like, America's, he's living the American dream. So he can best show, tell, talk about what needs to happen there in Minnesota versus it becoming Somalia land, because that's what it done turned into under Tim Walsh. So yeah, I'm praying for Mr. Mike Lindell to blow it out the water here, because I believe that he's the best man for the job there in Minnesota.
And every time I would see Mike, or you too, Silk, whenever you're at various events, whether it was AmFest or maybe CPAC or just at a rally or just wherever, the American people are drawn to people like you, drawn to people like Mike, drawn to people that are on the side of the people. I mean, what doesn't the mainstream media understand, right?
Well, you're absolutely right. They are drawn to us, and that's the reason why they censor us, because we are influencers, and they don't want us to influence the masses. They don't want us to say something that's going to steer people the right way. That's why they want to keep people stuck in the wrong way. So someone like Mike Lindell, hey, he's been flying, like I tell people, he's been flying around here like Santa Claus, telling everybody, hey, the election was stolen. He's doing his research. He's doing what he needs to do. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And people love a fighter. People love to see people fighting, because guess what? Not only is he fighting to show the proof with the truth, he's also fighting on behalf of us, the American people, so we can have integrity in our elections, something that's been lost, something that's gone. We've been having selections, not elections. These people have not been winning, they've been stealing. They've been installed like a virus, like a Trojan horse, and that's what's been going on, and people have awakened to it. So it's really, really great to be who I am. Sometimes I don't even believe it. I have to pinch myself, but it's great to be who I am. I don't exploit that. I don't extort it. I don't take and I'm not egotistical with it or anything like that. I'm just like you. I'm just like the next person. I'm a human being. I'm a woman who love America. I'm an American citizen that wants the best for everybody. So I can sit down and have a conversation with anybody, despite who I am.
Exactly. And on top of that, we're simple. We're patriots. We are, what I like? I like to say that I'm an everyday American. You're an everyday American. A lot of times, Silk, in media, people act like, well, look at me, and I have the lights on here and the camera. You know what? Who cares? Nobody cares about that anymore. We want truth. Don't we want truth, Silk? And finally, I'll just let you close with that reaction there.
Most definitely. We want truth. We've had a lot of people that's been infiltrating the circle, been infiltrating the podcast circle and so forth, just to get there and try to make a buck. But I am grateful to be an individual that's here to tell people the naked, nasty, low down, gutter written truth. I don't care how you slice it, dice it, flip it up, or rub it down, Matt. I am so grateful to be part of the team of telling the truth, or the truth tellers, you can call it. I'm grateful for that.
In Jesus' name. Thank you so much, Silk, for joining us here. We'll talk to you again soon. I always like working with you on the program.
Thank you so much. DiamondandSilkStore.com. Hey, Matt, can I just say one thing?
Go for it.
I have the Diamond and Silk bobblehead memorabilia that's there at the Diamond and Silk store. I'm giving it to everybody for $10, just $10. This would have been 10-year anniversary for Diamond and Silk, but the Diamond and Silk brand is still going on. So $10 for the Diamond and Silk bobblehead memorabilia. And I got the Trump bling pins, buy one, get one free. God bless you, Matt, and I love you.
Love you too. Thank you so much, Silk.
You're welcome.
God bless Silk. God bless anybody really that is on the right side of history that's speaking truth. I mean, Silk is very talented. I love her just way that she just tells it like it is. So speaking of telling it like it is, that's what we do here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. And in conservative media, the mainstream media stuff's boring anyway, and they're lying. And they have an agenda. Our agenda is pretty simple. It's called common sense and the truth. That's pretty good, right? All about God, family, country, freedom, common sense, truth, justice, and the American way. All right, so what we heard from Washington, D.C. is that the pool feed has been now taken down. That means that this is turned into a closed press situation, which now means we will upload something if we see it from the White House. So we're going to close our broadcast for this moment here. We will be live, of course, in North Carolina tomorrow, Rocky Mount, North Carolina. RSBN host Robert McNeely will be there. And also, if you'd like to watch the AmFest 2025, there is a link for that right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Again, for all of us at the network, including everybody behind the scenes that gets all this stuff on TV for you, my name is Matthew Alvarez. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.